time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Hello. Talking to that again?
Hello.
Sounds good. All right. Just make sure you're on auto. That sounded a little hot.
Was it hot?
Sounded a little hot.
It should be on auto. Pretty sure.
Could be.
I'll take a look.
Russell's
could just
voice.
be my enthusiasm.
Could be
my joy de vivre.
Could be your gravelly voice. Since
could be that too.
You dissidents, you got Russ wasted last night at the open mic. Your bad influence.
You guys got me so fucked up, man.
Yeah.
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. So
I forgot you were at the open mic yesterday, because when we talked last night, you said something that I didn't understand. What did you say? You said something like, well, that something, I forget. And I think you assumed that I remembered you were at the open mic, but I didn't.
Oh, right.
So I didn't know what the hell you were talking about. So I just moved on. I'm like, yeah, anyway, so for tomorrow, here's what we got. Yeah.
He just kind of ignored me.
Yeah, I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm so wasted.
Yeah.
No, we have fans of the show there who did get me a little inebriated. I'm okay though. So yeah, I did my reading. I wrote a poem specifically about gentrification of Buffalo, and I got a lot that stopped the room, and it was a hard room to stop because I was the only one who did poetry. Somebody did tap, somebody did comedy. Most people were doing music. People are drinking. It's late at night on a Monday.
Yeah.
To get people with poetry is hard. But I got him, man. I could feel that moment when everyone stopped talking and started listening. So unfortunately, we did not get it on tape. Next time, I'll do it again while I'm here. Not at that joint though. That's not a place to do poetry. I was lucky to get him to shut up for 5 minutes. But check this out. See this guy drawing there? There's a quick sketch artist there who drew everybody who went up. And he did one of me there. You could see him holding that.
Wow, that's
His name's
cool.
Vasquez.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. He just he did that 5 minutes
while you were
ago.
talking, yeah.
With a
great.
marker,
Yeah.
not even with a pencil.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Pretty cool evening. I will probably do my next reading. There's a place here, Cafe Aroma, that specifically does a poetry reading. I'll probably do the next one there. I'll announce it when I'm gonna do it.
There you go. Yeah, we can get that one on video so we can play it.
Yeah.
That might be fun. That'll be a fun time. Well, yes, cool to be there, and thanks all the dissidents who came out and said hello.
Yep.
That's a fun time.
Thanks for buying me beers. I'm not thanking you for that today, but
it seemed like a good idea at the time.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Exactly.
It seemed like it seemed rude to decline.
Right. Exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's rude to turn it down. Right.
Well, it's one of those things. Somebody's you're like, okay, man, I'm not going to have another one. We have a show tomorrow. I have exhibits to do in the morning. And they're like, hey, what are you drinking, Sam? Ad? You're like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. That's the way that goes. Well, it's a 2 p.m., not a 12 p.m. So
yeah.
We made it. We got a great crowd in here to start things off. 752 strong in the YouTube chat. Coming up on 400 strong on the Rumble chat. So, folks, please smash that like button. Please smash that subscribe button. A couple of program notes. We understand that as we are doing the show today, Donald Trump is in Saudi Arabia, so there is a significant risk that these segments, at least one of them, will have a very short shelf life. So if what we say is obsolete, if you're watching the replay or listening on the podcast tomorrow, we apologize. There's nothing we could do about that. Second, the second episode of the Misty Winston Show is tomorrow at 7 p.m. only on Rumble and Twitter. She has Hamid Dardigan from Iraq Body Count talking about how to calculate the real death toll in Gaza. Very, very upbeat show we have for you tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to miss that. And then, of
We
course...
we will have clowns.
Yeah, exactly, yes. Kyle Anzalone from antiwar.com will be joining Misty as well. So 2 guests tomorrow. That should be great. Make sure you're following us on Rumble so you don't miss that. All right, folks, let's get started. Let's see what we got here going on. Let's take a look at some video. Here we have, so, you might be asking yourself, why are you showing us footage from the meet and greet line at the Charlie Daniels Band concert from 2009? Which is a reasonable question. It's a reasonable question because that would seem out of place on a show like this. However, this is not actually footage from the meet and greet line at the Charlie Daniels Band concert from 2009. These are the Afrikaners. These are the white South Africans. They've arrived. They have
The
made
devil
it.
went down to Cape Town. He was looking for a visa to steal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So they made it. They made it. They are here. They are here. And of course, Donald Trump was asked, given your crackdown on just about every other type of refugee or potential refugee, why make an exception for South Africa? And he uses the G word, the all-elusive G word, to describe what's going on with white South Africans in their homeland.
Their home country are heading to the United States, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something, but we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of, but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about.
Oh, wow. It's a genocide.
I've talked to Elon about this. He told me stories you wouldn't believe about getting wedgies every day. He would get wedgies in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. He says it didn't really end until his sophomore year in college. These people are animals there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a genocide.
I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of, but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white.
Oh, they
but
happen
whether
to be
they're
white.
white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa, and the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have...
Yeah, it's interesting.
Help! I'm being repressed!
Yeah, right, exactly, yes. Pretty interesting how, you can respond. So when someone says, hey, that thing you say is happening that's not happening, why do you say it's happening when it's not happening? Well, you think it's not happening because the media doesn't want to say that it's happening.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just no way to win there. It's just a matter of fact versus fiction. I suppose we'll have to agree to disagree on that. But here is...
Heads white wins, tails black loses.
Yeah, right, exactly, yes. Exactly. So here is a question to the Trump official. I forget his name. It's on the screen in a later clip. But asked pretty much a similar question. And we'll see what his response to this is. It's worth setting this up because this reporter, the BBC reporter, mentions that the Afghan refugee program is being shuttered, which affects Afghans who actually helped the United States during the Afghanistan war. Now, whatever the morality of that you may or may not feel, they are collaborating with an occupying power, but they were doing so as a favor to us. And yet, now that the Taliban is back in control there because of what a brilliant job we did over the course of 20 years, now they are being turned away, but not the white South Africans. So let's hear this.
I just wanted to know, there were many, from the BBC, there are many people who fit the criteria of seeking help, who are fleeing persecution. Afghans, for example, they live in a country run by the Taliban, but they're being denied refugee status. So I'm wondering, why has such an exception been made for the Afrikaners, especially when the South African government says they're not in danger? And are you going to open up the refugee settlement program for others?
Thank you for that question. I think you may recall that on the president's first day in office, on January 20th of this year, he issued an executive order that paused U.S. refugee programs that had been going at record levels under the prior administration and had brought in people that we were not sure had been carefully vetted for national security issues, and
like our Secretary of
put
Defense,
a pause
right,
on the refugee admission program in general. That pause, of course, was subject from the very beginning to exceptions where it was determined that this would be in the interest of the United States. Some of the criteria are making sure that refugees did not pose any challenge to our national security and that they could be assimilated easily into our country. So the president on February 7th issued an executive order about the egregious conditions in South Africa, and all of these folks who have just come in today have been carefully vetted.
Carefully vetted using the Family Guy wallet skin color test. They are of the lighter 3 shades on the meme. The darker 3 shades on the meme get you subject to additional scrutiny, but luckily no further examination was required in these cases.
Pursuant to our refugee standards, and whether or not the broader refugee programs for other people around the world will be lifted is still an ongoing consideration. But again, the president has recognized the dire situation of this particular group of people, and again, they went through the process.
Yeah. The dire situation of this particular group of people. So once again, here they are arriving in the United States. Here are some photos of the refugees.
Is that Trump's friend who bought the Ozempic in Britain?
Yeah, that's the guy. Well, that's why they needed a plane that size. You would think, why did they need a plane this size to carry 59 people? Well, there you have your answer. By the way, folks, you see the size of that plane for only 59?
Like they've really been through hell.
Yeah, they look like they've really been through hell. By the way, if you look at the size of that plane for 59 people, Margaret Kimberly made the point. Notice only 59 Afrikaners took advantage of this program, which shows you how non-victimized they are, which shows you how there's not a genocide going on. If there was a genocide going on, there'd be thousands waiting to come in.
Of course. They'd be hanging on to the wheel. It'd be like Saigon.
There's a video. I can't show it on YouTube. I wish I could, because the guy's got a gun in his hand. We're not allowed to show people like brandishing a weapon on YouTube. But there's a video that's going around of a white South African coming to the gate of his fucking mansion, and he's in an argument with these 2 black delivery workers that look like they were. They look like FedEx type guys. And the guy say, "Why'd you pull a gun on me, Charlie? Why'd you pull a gun on me, Charlie?" It's because I'm black, and he's cursing the guy out. Those are the white South Africans. That's the way. So yeah, if this was a genocide, why did only 59 people take advantage of this offer? Yeah, that kind of tells you the crop of people who are coming in. It's the losers who cannot achieve anything in society, despite the fact that the white poverty rate is 2% of the black poverty rate. Black poverty rate's about 50%. White poverty rate's about 1%. Not a genocide.
It's the ones who are too fat to bend over the ledger to keep the accounts.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But here is the State Department put together a nice 40-second propaganda video. Welcome, Afrikaner refugees. I mean, this is it's just beyond satire. It really is.
Welcome.
What's this guy's name?
Welcome to the United States of America.
I don't care.
A lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom. And we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children. And then when we will benefit alongside you.
When you have quality seeds.
Community. Just been revoked.
I love that. When you have quality seeds.
These seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And
I mean, look,
when you have seeds that are brown or blackish on the edges, they don't take to the soil as well.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I hope I'm not reading into all that. I don't want to be one of those blue-haired people. But yeah, I mean, you say, I mean, that is kind of a loaded statement. When you have quality seeds and you put them in foreign soil, they'll grow. Yeah. I mean, what the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? I mean, you do have to be conscious of the fact that you are a president who ran on the most draconian anti-immigration platform ever. And you are carving out one exception for white South African farmers. So a sentence like that can be interpreted in that way. I think that's totally fair. So yes, first Afrikaners arrive in the U.S. under radically redrawn refugee program. The first group of white South African refugees arrived in the U.S. on Monday under President Trump's executive order mandating they be prioritized for resettlement, even as the broader refugee program remains largely on hold. The 59 Afrikaners, descendants of mainly Dutch colonists, underwent expedited reviews that took months, were brought to the U.S. on a government-chartered flight, and were greeted at Dulles International Airport by federal officials, all unconventional steps for the refugee resettlement program, which can take years to process. But their admission to the United States has drawn scrutiny from resettlement agencies in the U.S. who faced sharp budget, resource, and personnel cuts since Trump took office. Among his first executive actions, Trump temporarily paused the refugee resettlement program. Various agencies, including the State Department, have also paused dispersing funding for critical services such as the home, job, and school assistance the Afrikaners are poised to receive. So they're getting housing, job placement, and school assistance. Wow. Immigrants coming over, getting American resources paid for by American taxpayers on a chartered airplane that could have fit that same crowd probably 12 times over, all on your dime, America. How do you feel about that? Are you angry? Are you riled up about that? Is Benny Johnson getting you riled up about that? They're coming here and they're using our resources. Wow.
All right. Again, we have homeless veterans.
We have homeless veterans. Exactly.
Right. They're getting treated better than our veterans.
That's right. This is a
Doesn't
slap
that make
in the
you
face
angry?
of the
I
veteran.
thought that's the kind of thing that makes you guys angry.
Yes.
I thought you get angry about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Taking care of foreigners instead of Americans.
That's right. That's right. How dare they? How dare they?
All of a sudden, you're very concerned about genocide. I've never seen you show this concern to any non-white people with legitimate claims of genocide.
Right. We sent a massive airplane into a country whose people are being genocided, and only 59 of them got on board. That's weird.
Yeah, that's very strange. It kind of gives away the game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't
the
you
rest of
think
them said
there's
no
a
thanks. We'll
going
continue
on,
being
they'd be, like,
genocided.
warming the plane.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You see Afghanistan?
Right. Yeah.
See how desperate the people were to get on those planes?
Yeah. Yeah. The pause sent the refugee resettlement agencies into turmoil as refugees already cleared to arrive in the U.S. received notice their flights had been canceled. So those are the non-white South African refugees. Those are the rest of the world's refugees had their flights canceled.
Right.
In a very, very quick fashion once Trump took office. Amongst those in limbo were Afghans who worked with the United States military, a move that some Republicans have criticized. So the Afghan collaborators who assisted the military in our 20-year occupation of their country got shafted, but the white South Africans got let in. Judges have ordered the government to at least resume the refugee program for those who had already been approved to travel, but the administration is fighting the court order, once again defying a court order to accommodate the non-white, non-South African refugees. So here is a white South African woman who is speaking on the group of South African refugees that have just entered the United States. Take a listen. We've done several videos on this topic, and we played a few more, but there are a lot of white South Africans who are saying this is ridiculous. We're not being persecuted here.
And I must say, we're getting some of them in our comments section, which is a nice change of pace.
That's great.
This is for the Americans. If you're not an American, feel free to watch, but please try and get it to the Americans.
That's what we're doing.
My name is Bianca van Wyk. Born in South Africa, live in South Africa. Today you will be welcoming the so-called white Afrikaans refugees. They are there based on an offer made to them, which I must say was informed by disinformation about South Africa. Now, I've seen a lot of takes on who Americans think they are receiving. Okay, you are not getting successful, professional, white, middle-class South Africans that are fleeing South Africa.
We saw the video.
The people you are getting are the people that believe that there is discrimination against them based on their race. Keep in mind, we live in the...
You're getting the people who, despite the economy being rigged in their favor 50 times over, consider themselves victims of state oppression. That's who you're getting. That's the crop that you are receiving. Thank you for taking them off our hands. I bet they're thrilled to see them go. I mean, that's the thing. In a way, this is a pro-South Africa policy, because I bet South Africans are like, yeah, please, get them off our hands.
This is South Africa's Muriel boat lift.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right? They're Yes, please. He's been working at the same convenience store since high school. He's 51. Take him. Take him. It depresses everyone. No one wants to buy a Slurpee. They get one look at him, they burst into tears.
Yeah, exactly.
Most unequal country in the world. We have, for instance, 70% of agricultural land and agricultural holdings are owned by white South Africans. 62 to 68% of top leadership positions in corporate are filled by white males. There is a huge salary disparity between white South Africans and the rest of the population. And there are a number of other indicators which shows you that this story of discrimination based on race is false. Another thing that I wanted to say is that you will get certain so-called refugees that have experienced crime. However, in South Africa, no one is exempt. These people that you are welcoming assume because they're white, they should not experience crime. The people most affected by crime in South Africa happen to be black people that live in poverty. So as you open your doors and welcome people, and you're going to get a lot of information and disinformation from these people, please do keep that in mind. Oh, I also would like to say all the best and good luck to the Americans.
All the best and good luck to the Americans. Well, thank you very much for that. So one development in this case that is kind of cool is that the Episcopal Church has refused to resettle white Afrikaners, citing moral opposition. So they're getting some pushback from the church. Yes, the based church. In a striking move that ends a nearly 4 decades old relationship between the federal government and the Episcopal Church, the denomination announced on Monday that it is terminating its partnership with the government to resettle refugees, citing moral opposition to resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa who have been classified as refugees by President Trump's administration. In a letter sent to members of the church, the Most Reverend Sean W. Rowe, the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, said 2 weeks ago the government informed Episcopal Migration Ministries that under the terms of our federal grant, we are expected to resettle white Afrikaners from South Africa whom the U.S. government has classified as refugees. The request, Rowe said, crossed a moral line for the Episcopal Church, which is part of the global Anglican Communion, which boasts among its leaders the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a celebrated and vocal opponent of apartheid in South Africa. Here is an interview with Sean Rowe about their decision.
59 white Afrikaners from South Africa landed in Washington, D.C. today. The Afrikaners were the white minority group in South Africa that ruled during apartheid. The group was granted refugee status from the Trump administration, as the Trump administration has accused South Africa's government of racially discriminating against them. The South African government has denied this. This all comes as the administration as a whole has essentially halted all other refugee admissions. The Episcopal Church was ordered by the government to help resettle the Afrikaners, but today the church took a stand, terminated its relationship with the federal government, citing a moral opposition to resettling the white Afrikaners. Joining us now is the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, Bishop Sean Rowe. Bishop, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was a 4 decades old relationship across many administrations that ended today. Why did the classification of these immigrants as refugees cross a moral line?
Well, the reality is we can't be ourselves in the Episcopal Church and take the step of resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa. Our church has a long commitment to racial justice and reconciliation, and we have historic ties with the Anglican Church of South Africa. Desmond Tutu is a part of, been a partner in, was a partner in this work for us. So we're just not able to take this step. It's not in line with anything that we're about. And it also saddens us to see that other refugees who are being denied entrance to the United States are people, brave people who've worked alongside of our military in Iraq and Afghanistan, now face danger, have been in camps for a long time and aren't being allowed in. And so this is just, the program no longer aligns with where we are as a church and what we're about.
Based indeed. Well, you know who has a problem with this is Charlie Kirk. So in response to this news, so this is amazing. This is amazing how the right-wingers have twisted this issue around to try and get a rhetorical own on those who are upset about the Afrikaner resettlement drive. I guess you aren't a refugee if you are white. According to the Episcopal Church, Jesus doesn't love white people. Now, this is the argument that they're making. This is what they think is an own. This is not Charlie Kirk. This is SKS Cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the graphic. The overweight, pink-haired lib woman says, refugees welcome, and then she finds out that
looks
they're
more
white.
like the one that got off the plane.
Yeah, right, exactly, yes. So the big lib woman says, refugees welcome, assuming the refugees are non-white refugees, and then she gets a big scowl on her face when she sees that the refugees are white refugees.
What about Ukrainians? They didn't scowl about Ukrainians. We took plenty of Ukrainian refugees.
That's right. Well, Matt Walsh says the great replacement is real. If you had any doubt, this story about the South African refugees should clear it up for you. The left wants unchecked third world migration because they want to make America less white. That's it. It's that simple. That's why they oppose the white refugees, because white refugees defeat the whole purpose of the program. To which Evan Loves Worf replies, no one opposes the refugees, you fucking dipshit. They oppose the idea that you guys are only letting white people in. Yes, exactly. If we had an open refugee program and a few dozen fat South African losers want to come live here because they don't like it there anymore, I have no problem with that. Like, I wouldn't care. What the hell do I care? The point is not that the left loves brown refugees but hates white refugees. No, the point here, the reality is obvious. What we take issue with is not the fact that they are coming here, but the fact that they have had a special carve-out made for them, a special exception made for them. As we're discontinuing refugee programs, turning refugees away left and right of every other skin color, yes, and nationality, we are making a specific exception for white South Africans. That's what the issue is. The issue is not simply that they are coming. But notice how they try and twist it around as if, well, I thought you loved refugees, so what about them? No, the whole point is what is unique about them is that they are white, which is why you guys are letting them in and closing the door on everyone else.
They're not refugees by any meaningful standard. It's all it's a fugazi, it's a fugazi. But you can knock this down very easily. This is part of what's so absurd about what Walsh is asserting there. I've been all over the country the last few years, man. And I've made this point. I showed pictures to prove it. The only place you see Ukraine flags that's not like the rare Ukrainian neighborhood or enclave are rich, lib, neighborhoods. Same thing here, man. Same thing here. There's a kind of Libby bookstore by a cafe a few blocks away. I showed on Sunday they were doing a Palestine protest there. They don't have no Palestine flag in the window. They got a big Ukraine flag in the window. And we took a lot of Ukrainian refugees. Did you see these blue-haired libs have a problem with bringing in Ukrainian refugees?
Right, they're white.
You can they're quite white. You know how white they are? Even Hitler liked the Ukrainians.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Even Hitler saw them as Aryans. That is how white the Ukrainian people are. Those blue-haired libs are the most vociferously pro-Ukraine people in the fucking country next to actual Ukrainians. So obviously it's not about the whiteness. It's about the fact that with the Ukrainians, and we have a nuanced take on that conflict, and we do see it as something that NATO incited, but that's not the fault of the Ukrainian civilian population. When we've spoken against the war, it's been because Western policy is getting those people slaughtered.
Right.
Is seeing them as victims. So no, I mean, I don't personally have a problem with bringing them in as refugees, because by any standard, they're legitimately refugees. They're being fucking bombed. They're refugees. These are not refugees. When you are, what did it say? 8% of the population?
Yeah.
And you own over 90% of the land, you're not by any reasonable standard a victim. You have all of these people keep saying they've slaughtered hundreds of white farmers. If there were a fucking shred of evidence for that, I've been in this online debate world for 10 years. You get bombarded with links when there's any kind of evidence, and even if the evidence is kind of bullshit, if there's a link, you'll get it. Nobody has any links. Nobody has any evidence. Nobody has anything. They just say that.
Well, that's why Trump says, well, you don't want to report on it. Well, okay, that's a convenient qualification.
Somebody told us instead of being smug, you should interview somebody who's been reporting on this for years. I told him Stormfront was not available. They're at their annual team building cross burning event right now.
Yeah.
But hey, man, if that evidence is there, why do we even have to bring someone on, man? Like, why don't you show me where are these? Where are these videos? Because if that existed, we'd be getting buried in those videos.
Yeah,
we'd be getting them in our email.
Yeah, this is a very trending topic right now on X, and nobody posts any evidence of anything. And we should say, we've said this in previous segments, but this is being clipped separately, obviously. Not a single acre of land has been seized without compensation. Not one. There has not been a single instance of a land seizure without compensating the landowner. Not a single time. And so it's, of course, just absurd. But I would say, whether they're refugees or not, like, hey, if 50 of these people want to come here, I really don't have a problem with 50 of them coming here. The issue is that the administration
Somebody's
who ran...
gotta clean our septic tanks.
Yeah, right, exactly. The administration who ran on the most draconian anti-immigration platform ever made a special carve-out, made a special exception for the white South Africans. That's the issue. That's the issue. So you could just as easily turn that around, right? You could. What's amazing about this is Matt Walsh says, well, it's that simple. They want to make America less white. You could just as easily turn this around and say, well, hold on a second. I thought right-wingers were anti-refugee. So why are they making exceptions for the white refugees? It's because they want to make America more white, which is really the truth of it. Right? I mean, that's actually what's happening. Right? You could just as easily flip that around, but they try and beat you to it. So, yeah, pretty pathetic, pretty sad, but pretty darkly comical when you think about it. See those guys marching in here off the plane on a huge fucking jet. That jet probably could have held what? I mean, a few hundred people at least.
Right. I mean, that kind of is the end of the discussion.
Right.
If they're being genocided, how do you explain that people weren't swarming that plane, much less for it to be mostly empty?
Right, 59 people. Exactly.
You got an offer, all expenses paid trip to the U.S. with resettlement support, and there's a genocide. I promise you give that offer to Sudan, you're going to have people hanging onto the wheels of the plane as it takes off.
Hey, so let's do it. Let's do it. Let's send a few planes over to Sudan and bring back as many refugees as we possibly can because they're in real trouble. Let's do that. Matt Walsh, you for that, right?
Right. Yeah.
All
it
the
has
guys,
nothing to do with color, right?
Benny Johnson, right? You guys are all for that? We'll send the plane
standard is genuine refugees, right? I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of people around the world who fit that definition. See, the problem is because of certain historical realities and peculiarities, the vast majority of those people will not be white who are suffering those kinds of conditions. But you're good with that, right? Because you care so much now, all of a sudden, about refugees and people who are being subject to genocide.
Right, exactly. All right. What do we got over here? We got 265005 in the YouTube chat. Says, I've been making my own pizza for years, and I can assure you Pizza Hut is of the fast food pizza places the superior choice. Point goes to Keaton's palate, and shame on Russell's snobbery. Well, thank you. Thank you. I love the fake cheese with the brown bubbles.
Yeah. If I'm in a place where their local pizza is terrible and I just really want pizza, I mean, we don't do Pizza Hut now because we're boycotting.
Right. We can't do it now anyway.
We can't do it now. But like, yeah, I'll eat Domino's if I'm living in a place where it's that or like frozen supermarket pizza.
Right. I think Domino's is on the boycott list too, actually. But it's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that. We're actually making pizzas tonight. We're doing homemade pizza night here at the Weiss household.
Dwayne, I mean, I am a pizza snob, so it just doesn't come up. Like, I don't have to boycott Domino's.
Right, exactly.
I don't eat it anyway.
Doesn't eat it anyway. No risk there. Dwayne Vogel, thanks for the $5. Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to use the N-word. Yes, thank you, Dwayne Vogel. That's right. China Shill, thanks for the $5. All settlers are losers who couldn't hack it in their homeland and had to steal from weaker people, e.g. the United States, South Africa, Australia. Thank you, China Shill. Let's see. Nocturnal Human. Let's see. Is there a way you can set up a community voting system from when things come up, like when RB Ham volunteered to join your channel, or maybe for the people who support you monthly? Well, unfortunately, we can't outsource those decisions to the community because we have.
Yeah. What do you think we are, communists?
Well, yeah, exactly. Hey, 51% think you guys should start an organic farm. So I guess you have to do that now because that's what you have time to do. Yes. So you have a community. You guys have a community. Do you guys open up every facet of your life to the opinions of the chat? Like, what if 51% of the chat think that I need to have a fourth child? I guess that obligates me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still possible. You haven't gone and taken care of business, right?
Well, I didn't have to because it was a C-section. So Amanda had her business taken care of. When you have a C-section, you can do that.
Oh, so you're all good.
Yeah. Yeah. She had her Nord Stream pipeline sabotaged. So
Yeah.
yes. Personally, I would like a Saturday show with
Biden
RB.
was strangely in the neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah. But of course, it's your decision. Misty show was also great. Yeah. It took us 6 years to expand to the point where we can add one show. Just to give you a timetable on that, that was the 6 years of work getting to the point where we could afford to take on production duties for one more show. So, maybe in 2030, if he hones his craft, he'll get back to us and maybe
Hones his craft, builds an audience,
maybe
knows what he's doing, then maybe in 10 years.
Jamie Starr, Russell, I gather you used to watch the original Star Trek. Curious if you were ever into the Next Generation. Thank you.
Man. Star Trek Next Generation. The stuff they did after that, I wasn't really into. Like, I know a lot of people liked Deep Space Nine because it got into a lot of interesting kind of political conflict with the rebels and the Maquis, right? But yeah, man, I just didn't get into it. Voyager, I really didn't like the captain. I think they made her like a school marm commanding a starship. Yes, Mr. Chakotay. She always sounded like she was going to correct someone's grammar.
Right.
Enterprise was just weird. I don't like the concept of prequels anyway. So yeah, I pretty much checked out after TNG.
Killer Hinton says, sorry, dirtbags, had to miss a Sunday show due to alternating fits of maniacal laughter and uncontrolled weeping. I completely forgot the question, but intravenous gin is definitely, I forgot to, I think you ran out of characters there, but I get the point, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Hinton, sorry, thank you. As Nicodemus from RBN says, that you guys must be in shambles with Cheeto putting BB in the corner. Thank you, Abiding. Appreciate that. We have stuff on that in a few minutes. Hasan wasn't detained. I watched this whole video. He specifically asked them, am I being detained? And they said no. He even admitted he should have just pled the fifth and walked out or demanded a lawyer. Well, they kept him in a room for a couple hours, so he wasn't jailed. But yeah, that is being detained. Like when you get dragged aside by feds and questioned for a couple hours. Yeah, they did that to Max Blumenthal too when he came back from Nicaragua. Russ is moving to Brazil and getting a Brazilian wife. Sounds like Pasta almost signed up. Yes, I got the typo there, Eric. No worries.
We talked about that on Nico's show yesterday.
That's right. Yeah, it was a good show. Russ was on Nico House's show yesterday. That was fun. I caught that. All right. Why don't we move on? China, we got a deal. We have a deal.
All right, China. There have been so many twists and turns since Liberation Day, April 2nd. I put together a little video to catch everybody up and recap events.
It's a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. Traditionally, if you look at the history of the trade negotiations, we are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
美方发起的，中方的态度是一贯的、明确的，打奉陪到底，谈大门敞开，对话谈判。 必须是平等、尊重、互惠的。
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels.
You know you're a fucking mumbling, stuttering little fuck, you know that?
Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%. We had very robust discussions. Both sides showed great respect. It was a chance for me to meet the Chinese delegation. Both countries represented their national interests very well. We concluded that we have shared interest, and we both have an interest in balanced trade. The U.S. will continue moving towards that.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
So that's pretty much a summary of how this all went with China. So what happened? What scared them into backing down? Well, the news was not good around this for weeks. Believe me, not good. We had reports of shipping drying up. The Port of Los Angeles was warning that by next week, which is this week, the volume would plummet 35%. They stayed on the current course. You had the retailers of Walmart, Target, and Home Depot all go to the White House and tell Trump directly that they were going to be facing empty shelves and there was no way to replace these items in a cost-effective manner. But this is what I think did it. Because China said, hey, we're just going to divert our exports to other countries. And damn, they did. China's exports surge as shipments to Southeast Asian countries offset plunge in U.S. trade. Their trade with Southeast Asia increased by over 20%. Even their trade with Europe increased by over 8%. I believe this is what made them shit themselves. They were afraid if they let this go on, it would become structural. if they really let China completely reorient the whole way it handles manufacturing and imports, and they have the capacity to devalue their currency, which they were doing to make their exports more attractive. The longer this went on, the less leverage they would have with China, because once they've completely made the transition to a different trade style, what leverage do you have to get them to go back? The longer this went on, the more it would have been the U.S. begging them to come back. I think it was this data point that really made them get on their knees. Now, of course, Trump, if asked, is going to say they came to him. You know, China's a 5,000-year-old civilization dealing with a moronic fat baby. They know what Trump is. They're not going to come out and say, no, they came to us. I don't think so. I don't think they feel any need to do that. But I'd be very surprised if it was not the U.S. that made the first move. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. Certainly not China shills, not like our favorite fan in our audience. They are not China shills. And they themselves say the president started a trade war with Adam Smith. He lost. As with last week's modest British agreement, the China deal is more surrender than Trump victory. Apart from the tariff rollback, neither side announced any broader concessions on the substantive trade issues that weigh on the U.S.-China relationship. Those include China's barriers to American firms, especially in services such as digital and financial, and its chronic intellectual property theft. Many of these bad Chinese practices have become worse under President Xi Jinping's strong-arm economic management. As I said, not China shills by any means. One tragedy of Mr. Trump's shoot America in the foot first approach is that he's hurt his chances of rallying a united front of countries against Beijing's mercantilism. By targeting allies with tariffs, Mr. Trump has eroded trust in America's economic and political reliability. Beijing now also has the benefit of concrete experience to reassure the Communist Party that Washington would struggle to impose economic sanctions in a crisis such as a Chinese blockade or invasion of Taiwan. Taking a step back, where are we now after nearly 4 months of Mr. Trump's protectionism? The president's concessions since his initial tariff announcements include exemptions for goods from Canada and Mexico produced under the terms of the USMCA, a 90-day pause on his reciprocal tariffs against everyone except China, exemptions on China tariffs for iPhones and electronics, the mini deal with the United Kingdom, and now the 90-day rollback on China tariffs. The landing spot coming into view is a 10% global tariff and higher, but not 145% for China. The negotiations allegedly underway with dozens of countries, while the reciprocal tariffs are paused, may make some marginal headway opening markets for American firms. But so far, there's scant sign of the substantial trade deals that Mr. Trump promises. Exactly. We raised these tariffs on China. China said, yeah, we've been here for 5,000 years and we'll be here long after you're gone. And we'll deal with it. If it's going to be a little tough, that's fine. And lo and behold, yeah, we're going to pause all that. We're going to take those tariffs off. Now, to be clear, there is still a 30% tariff on China. I believe that's a 10% increase because I think Trump put in 20% in his first term and Biden kept that. So that does represent a 10% increase. Now, it does mention here, maybe there will be some marginal headway for American firms opening markets. And you know who always benefits from American firms making a little more money? The average American, right? You're going to benefit from that. Well, not so much. New report from the nonpartisan Yale Budget Lab finds that despite trade deals with China and the UK, Trump's tariffs will still cost American families $2,800 more this year. It's the highest tariff tax in nearly 100 years. So, you know, if this makes it possible for Apple to sell a few more products in Asia, do you actually think you're going to benefit from all this? No. In the end, tariffs are borne by the consumer. You've been taxed. You've been taxed. You've had an enormous tax increase. That money will go to the government, and you're going to pay it. You're paying an extra tax. They just increased your taxes by $2,800 a year on average.
Yep.
That's all
and the
this
House
does.
is cutting taxes on the rich by $3.7 trillion.
So there you go. There you go.
go.
What did you get out of that?
Yeah.
But hey, MAGA voice does not agree. He does not agree.
Oh, is that right?
Breaking. Trump's White House just posted a statement on U.S. and China's historic trade deal. America's tariffs on China cut from 145% to 30%. It's so regarded, let's say. It's regarded. China's tariffs on America, 125% to 10%. They each agreed to eliminate 115% of tariffs. That's what that is. Donald Trump did the impossible again.
I tell you, you say 10, we say 10, you say 145. Let's meet you in the middle at 30.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Let me just undo everything that I did. How about that? So this poster, Agent Self FBI, summed it up very well. Trump puts tariffs on China. Trump takes back the tariffs. MAGA, promises made, promises kept. What actually happened? Trump jacked tariffs up to 145%, tanked the markets, then cut them to 30% for 90 days, and sold it as a historic trade deal. MAGA cheered like he won something. In reality, he started a fire, then celebrated putting it out, selling this as keeping some pressure on China for future U.S. interests. What a joke. What a joke indeed. You impose these tariffs on China, fucked up all of the supply lines. You're still probably going to see some shortages as those snarls work themselves out, because it takes about a month for ships to get here from Asia, and they were leaving 40% capacity because of all the stuff that was not coming to the United States. So you're still likely to see some of that. These tariffs are going to lead to inflation. And China did not concede on anything. They gave nothing. They gave absolutely nothing in this deal. There was a mutual agreement to roll back 115% tariffs on both sides and to continue to talk further, whatever that means. But the Wall Street Journal editorial board, they're right. Trump is losing leverage with each of these deals where he doesn't actually get anything. He's showing his cards, and he's showing, in the end, the United States is not able to withstand what the consequences of pursuing these policies would be. It's the worst of both worlds, because he came in, there was a moment there where people were like, man, this motherfucker's crazy. Maybe he really, now they know he's not. Now they know he's not. So now you even lost that threat, because next time you say it, nobody's going to take you seriously. Clearly, you're not willing to, even if you were right in your theory, and you're not, but even if he was right in his theory that domestic manufacturing would come flooding back in if you stuck to your guns on this policy, he's made it very clear that he's not willing to ride out even the bond market rebellion against this, much less what would have happened if you started having the shelves empty out in a couple of weeks, which again, you'll probably still get some of it, but they could say, no, it'll be fine. We came to a deal with China.
Yeah. And this is what we said all along. There was no doubt that this would be how this went. And I mean, what this guy says here, that's 100% right. I mean, that is a version of what I thought when I found out that he was going to roll this back. And then they obviously said, what did they say? There were a bunch of tweets on Sunday night about, get ready for the stock market to go off the hook tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be, as if that's a win. What did you do? You realized that you were about to plunge the country into a depression, and you decided, I better not do this. Right. So I take it back.
And they're naturally relieved.
That's a victory. That's
now,
like if you were like, that's like if you were going to like chain smoke for a month straight, just 5 packs a day, 30 days straight. and then quit and declare victory over emphysema. Well, I
Right.
beat emphysema today. Well, no, you stopped doing an incredibly destructive thing that you started doing a month ago that you shouldn't have ever done in the first place. It's not a victory over anything. You're just undoing some of the damage that you did and mitigating further damage, which was very, very obvious to see coming. Again, when it comes to this, when it comes to Ukraine, even when it comes to Israel, Palestine, we have not written books on any of these topics, folks. We are a couple of working schmoes from New York, a couple of tour guides from New York. So how did we call all these things?
Below average intelligence.
Exactly. I mean, this was a pretty obvious one.
Yeah, not only that, okay, the stock market goes up, the stock market goes down. It's very reactive to events because you have to remember on any given day, I think it's less than 5% of stocks that change hands. I think it might be actually like 1% of stocks that change hands. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's the number. Most of it is being held by institutional investors who don't do the trading thing. They're not buying and selling all day. So all of that emotion, this is traders. These are people who are trying to make money off stock fluctuations every day, buying and selling and buying and selling. When you get a big drop, it's because you have an unusually high number of casual investors panicking and selling on any given day. In the long run, when you see the consequences of these policies structurally, when the tourism industry collapses, as it will, when foreign scientists, students stop coming, you're not getting any incubation of new startups because you're not bringing in that talent anymore. You no longer have top-notch people to go into your incubation entrepreneur labs that they have at universities like MIT and Stanford. You're not getting any of that. The American people finally realize that, going beyond all of these fireworks, they're really going to, on average, be paying more. Inflation is going to fundamentally be worse, which means they have less money to spend in the economy on other things because of the money they're going to be spending on things that were much cheaper before. As all that filters out into the numbers, but you're already seeing signs of it. Amazon sales are down. Walmart sales are down. Like, you're seeing the signs that people do not have the disposable income that they had. And that's only going to get worse. Yeah, this week, Trump started a fire and then he said, oh, just kidding. So of course the stock market went up. That's an emotional reaction. Longer term, as these policies taken as a whole start to be felt, yeah, the stock market is, I think, going to react pretty negatively to the overall Trump economic policy.
All right. Let's take some super chats and some rumble rants. How's my sound? Is my sound okay? You don't hear a big buzzing in the background? No?
Mm-mm.
All right,
No.
good. Because I have my noise cancellation on. They're landscaping here at the complex, so there's nothing I can do about it, but it's pretty loud on my end. Hard to focus.
No,
but
don't hear anything.
I'm a pro, so I can block it out. The Yuppies says, I was baptized Episcopalian. It's a pretty boring church, very common in Massachusetts. Well, yeah, it's a rich church. The lady who insulted Trump at the inauguration, she was, she's one of them too. It's kind of a rich lib church, very vanilla, yes. But at least we don't like white South Africans, yes, indeed. Brendan McNamara, to white wealthy landowners in South Africa, oppression simply means they're no longer in control of distribution of power in that society. Tiny violin plays. Indeed. Thank you, Brendan. Appreciate that very much. Thutmosel says, after white South Africans, Trump will extend the refugee program to all the truly oppressed people of the world, like AFD members in Germany, Tommy Robinson in England, and Ukrainian Azov Battalion. Thank you, Thutmosel. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau says AOC is fighting for white Israelis and Africans with their sunscreen fight. White skin matters. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Janatilla says the G word used to be glory hole. Netanyahu ruins everything. That's right. Another casualty of the war. Thank you, Janatilla. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau says they look like South African trailer park trash.
I mean, they really do.
Yeah, well, of course, because that's what the woman said in the thing. Like the white South Africans have it very well on a whole. That's why only 59 of them came over. It's why only 59, fewer than 100 left. You're telling me it's a genocide. You got fewer than 100 people took the opportunity to flee the genocide. Think about that. It's a genocide. We sent the plane and said, here, we're going to take you out of this genocide and give you help getting on your feet in terms of housing, employment, school for your kids. And fewer than 100 of the victims took them up on it. I mean, that really ought to tell you everything. RD&W, do refugees get a coordinated propaganda campaign or just the white ones? That's right. That's right. It's pretty crazy. How do you know it's not a genocide if you've never been? That's right. We've never been to South Africa. That's right. Yeah. Let's see. EO Shush says, I lost my job today to an immigrant, and initially I was frustrated and pissed, but was relieved when my farmer boss told me he was a white South African. That's right. That's right. Yes. Made it all better.
I just look forward to all the content we're going to get out of the neighborhoods that they get settled into.
Oh yeah, right, exactly. Otacon says, you are wrong, Russell. Per the ADL, us Eastern Slavs are non-white. I thought that was absurd, but after seeing this display of unbearable cringe whiteness, I am leaning into it. Thank you. Yes, there you go. There you go.
I was also wrong about looking this up. I don't know where I got that number from. I got that somewhere. All right, so I can't find a number this quick about the total trading volume, but NASDAQ, according to what I just researched, is 13.7% per day.
Okay.
On average. That's the NASDAQ. That's not the other averages.
Alrighty, we will move right on along, folks. Okay, so Trump is in the Middle East, and there are developments that are breaking, I'm sure, as we speak right now. But we feel confident that this segment is worth doing anyway, because this is kind of about the run-up to his visit, in which the Israelis seem to be getting sidelined on important decision after important decisions. So this is from the New York Times. Hamas frees American held in Gaza in deal that largely circumvents Israel. So Trump and Hamas negotiated the release of the last remaining American hostage, who, yes, was a dual citizen and, yes, had served in the IDF. But he was a U.S. citizen, which meant that Donald Trump felt that he could negotiate directly with those who are holding him hostage and that we didn't need to involve the Israelis. So Hamas released Eden Alexander, the last living American hostage it held in Gaza, on Monday evening after mediators brokered a deal between the group and the United States that largely circumvented the Israeli government. Mr. Alexander's release came on the eve of a visit by President Trump to the Middle East and was portrayed by Hamas officials as an attempt to secure U.S. support for a wider deal to end the war. Unlike most other hostages, Mr. Alexander was released without a formally announced ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, highlighting the failure of efforts to secure a broader truce between the two sides. Hamas still holds at least 20 living hostages, along with some 40 dead bodies, including those of several Americans, but it is reluctant to release more of them unless Israel agrees to hold negotiations to end the war. Israel wants the right to continue the war after any future truce, leading to an impasse in the talks. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, said in a statement on Monday that Mr. Alexander's release showed the benefits of placing Hamas under greater military pressure. In March, Mr. Netanyahu ordered the Israeli military to break an earlier ceasefire, saying it would force the group to release more hostages and lead to its total military defeat. So here is Netanyahu trying to cope a little bit as if he deserves some credit for this latest hostage release. We embrace him, and we embrace his family. This was achieved thanks to our military pressure and the diplomatic pressure applied by President Trump, mostly President Trump. This is a winning combination. I spoke with President Trump today. He told me, I am committed to Israel and committed to continuing to work with you in close cooperation in order to achieve all of our war objectives, releasing all of the hostages and defeating Hamas. This goes together. They're combined. with each other. So he's issuing a statement making it sound like he and President Trump's pressure combined are what achieved this deal and that there was some efficacy in breaking the ceasefire. Of course, that is total cope and total nonsense, which most Israelis recognize by now. In addition to that negotiation bypassing Israel and Netanyahu, Reuters reports under Trump, Saudi civil nuclear talks delinked from Israel recognition. Sources say the United States is no longer demanding Saudi Arabia normalize ties with Israel as a condition for progress on civil nuclear cooperation talks. Two sources with knowledge of the matter told Reuters ahead of Donald Trump's visit next week, which is right now. Dropping the demand that Saudi Arabia establish diplomatic relations with Israel would be a major concession by Washington. Under former President Joe Biden, nuclear talks were an element of wider U.S.-Saudi deal tied to normalization and to Riyadh's goal of a defense treaty with Washington. Now, a slight note on that, which we'll get to in the next segment. In his speech in Saudi Arabia, which happened just about an hour ago, Donald Trump did ask Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords and recognize Israel. The way I read that is, hey, we just made this great weapons deal with you. We're going to sell you $142 billion worth of state-of-the-art equipment. Maybe you can do us a solid, right? So there's a bit of an asterisk there. However, these negotiations were entered into without Israel's participation or consent. Trump says U.S. to stop strikes on Houthis in Yemen. This was, again, something where Donald Trump went over Netanyahu's head or behind his back, whichever metaphor you prefer. Yes, the pattern was recognizable by the Washington Post, which put out a piece yesterday. Trump repeatedly bypasses Netanyahu, stoking dismay among Israelis. This report came out in Haaretz because Trump is going to Qatar on Wednesday. I think he's going there tomorrow.
He's got to pick up his plane.
Yeah, right. He's going to go pick up the plane. I think he's going tomorrow or Thursday, but I think tomorrow. So I think we're going to be able to cover this more on Thursday.
This has the leather seats I ordered.
Yeah, exactly. But Haaretz reports Trump plans to unveil plans to end Gaza war in Qatar, ordering Netanyahu to fall in line. After Netanyahu tried to impose demands and blame Hamas for the breakdown in talks, Eden Alexander's release signals coordination between Qatar and the U.S. Witkoff instructed Netanyahu to send a team to Doha, where tight schedules await. So we don't have word on that. Obviously, that will be huge news if it happens. This was kind of a frustrating week to do this job because so much of the quote-unquote news was actually like internal speculation about how this Middle East trip might go, how the Russia-Ukraine negotiations might go. You know, if we reported every time Trump said something that sounded like it might be important, I mean, that would be all we would cover. He said on the plane, we have to be good to Gaza. You know, they're suffering. Oh, really? Oh, really? They're suffering. Wow. We have to be good to Gaza. You know, you could have come to that realization 5 months ago, right? Before Israel broke the ceasefire. But anyway, there is a recognizable pattern, obviously, of Trump going over Netanyahu's head. There have been reports that their personal relationship is now quite fraught, which again does not surprise me. No one actually likes the Israelis. No one actually likes Netanyahu. Everyone deals with him.
They're not a very likable people, I must say.
No, and no one gets along with the guy. They deal with him to the extent they feel that they have to, and Trump feels especially obligated, this time especially, because of that $100 million investment from Miriam Adelson and God knows what blackmail material they have on him and his crackerjack cabinet there. But there's no like real genuine friendship between Netanyahu and anybody. You know, he and Obama clearly hated each other. It was clear that he didn't like Biden very much either. You know, Biden, there was reports out of the Biden White House. He hung up on him. You're an asshole. You're this, you're that. So again, we could speculate. We could have spent these last few shows speculating for 3 hours at a time about what will happen this week. But that's what we know has happened so far. And we do know that Israeli officials and their media lackeys are not terribly pleased. So here is Sky News' Mark Austin asking if the U.S. is cutting Israel out of key decisions. Israeli spokesman David Mencer snaps, calling it a talking point of Israel's enemies. So yes, this guy did not take that question very well.
Theme that there's a pattern developing. America has done this deal without Israel. They've done a deal with the Houthis no Israel. They're talking to Iran, no Israel. Isn't this all humiliating for Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yeah, that's again the story which Hamas wants you to share, but this war will end when the hostages come home and Hamas are gone. Simple as that.
See, this is why no one likes you guys, because he asks you a simple question and you jump down his throat.
Yeah.
You can see, not taking it well.
I'm merely stating facts and asking you questions. You can't.
No, they're not
answer
facts. They're opinions. They're opinions. We won't rest until.
I would have loved to have heard the rest of that. You can't answer everything. I would have loved for them not to cut him off. You can't answer every question like a bulldog who just got his tail cut with a pair of scissors.
They're your opinions, Mark. And Mark, you've been wrong about this war in every single moment. And we've had this discussion over the last 19 months. You've been wrong at every single point. You want to capitulate. You want Israel to capitulate to Hamas, and we won't. We won't do it because we're a democracy. I'm happy to be asked questions.
I appreciate that. Completely appreciate that.
Ask me a decent question, I'll answer it.
Well, please do. Tell me where this is wrong. Did the Americans have any involvement in the release of this? The Israelis have any involvement in the release of this hostage? Have the Israelis had any involvement in the deal with the Houthis that the Americans have done? Are the Israelis talking to Iran at the moment? That's were my questions. Where am I wrong on that? Please tell me, because it'll be interesting to know.
We are closer than ever with our American allies. What you're sharing is a view which Israel's enemies would like to share it to the outside world. It's not just wrong, it's morally backwards. Let's not confuse the arsonist with the firefighter. We're fighting to defeat Hamas in this war.
You're talking to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone.
Nice guy, that guy. What a diplomat. Wow.
No, they're just the worst fucking people, because
those are the guys they hire for PR. Keep in mind, those are the guys like, hey, you know what? You would look great on camera.
Well, they had,
yeah.
Well, you know, they had after October 7th, they had that really creepy guy. I forget his name, the skinny guy with the glasses.
Yeah. I forget his name. Yeah.
And then they got rid of him because he wasn't doing too good, and they decided to stick a woman out there since they were making all of these assault claims. They probably thought that would help. Right. And now there doesn't seem to be a spokesperson. They seem to have just gotten rid of the idea and just decided to go with General Hasbara from whoever's available.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that's an Israeli spokesperson. He is on the government payroll. Here's a guy who may as well be on their government payroll. Here's Mark Levin. Yes, old radio host, now has a weekly Fox News show. I think it's weekly. It used to be weekly. Who knows? Maybe they bumped him up. I'm not a regular viewer. Levin throws a fit over reports that Trump may put the interests of America over Israel by inking various new deals with Iran, the Saudis, and Hamas. So here is Mark Levin going on a rant about how Israel is basically being neglected, insisting, though, that he speaks for tens of millions of red-blooded Americans, including, yes, some Jews, but also a lot of Christians as well. Talk about the lady doth protest too much. Here he is.
The Middle East is filled with terrorists and terrorist regimes. Americans do not like Iran and the regime that runs it. They're terrorists. They keep threatening to destroy us and our friends, the Israelis. They're trying to get nuclear weapons and put them on intercontinental ballistic missiles. We reject it. I speak for tens of millions of red-blooded Americans.
Oh, sure you do.
I speak for Christians and Jews and others alike. This is the view of the American people.
You read a poll lately?
That's number one. Yeah. Americans hate Hamas. We hate terrorists, butchers, Nazis. We got real questions about Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11. And the more that comes out, as the FBI just released some information about 6 to 8 months ago, the worse it looks that Saudi Arabia did in fact have a hand in helping Al-Qaeda attack us.
Now, just a side note, I mean, as an Iraq war kid, I remember listening to this fucking asshole on the radio. Could not do more pumping up the war on terror, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq. Now, all of a sudden, he's red-pilled about 9/11. Right. I mean, and don't forget, these guys are hacks at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And kill over 2,000 of our fellow citizens. That's what we Americans reject and believe. We know who the good guys are. 80% of us support the state of Israel.
That's not true at all. That's not true at all anymore. Now, actually, a minority of Americans support the state of Israel. So you see what this guy's doing. He keeps going out of his way to insist that he speaks for the average American.
People, right.
And he notices whenever he mentions Jews, he mentions Christians alongside them. He does that again here.
Right.
Our holy land for Jews and Christians.
Oh, our holy land for Jews and Christians. Wow. Really? Really? That's interesting. Netanyahu has said very loud and clear, when challenged about this, because back in 2012, John Kerry, by the way, Secretary of State, well, this would have been Obama's second term, so it would have been a little after 2012. Forget exactly when he said this. He said Israel can either be a Jewish state or a democratic state. It cannot be both. Netanyahu's retort, yes, of course. And Netanyahu's retort to that was Israel is not the home of all people. It is the home to the Jewish people. That's what he says. But he goes out of his way to say that every time.
And most of us despise the terrorist and the terrorist regimes, all of which are one form of dictatorship or another. So that's the foundation. Let's begin there. If only Israel would accept the Palestinian state as a condition of Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords, if that's a condition, then who cares if they join the Abraham Accords? Accept a ceasefire with Qatar-funded Hamas, so Hamas, you see, can rebuild and strike Israel again. That's not going to happen, whether Qatar likes it or not. Accept the deal with Iran that does not fully dismantle their nuclear program. That better damn well not happen either.
That better damn well not happen either. And I speak for most Americans. Right. Talk about a general with no army. This is why the Daily Wire, subject to the next video, is failing, because this is just a completely declining view of the world. This whole approach is not popular anymore amongst anybody. And it is obvious as hell that Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, who's coming up next, are more loyal to Israel than they are to the United States. That is not anti-Semitic to observe that. That is plainly obvious. I would say it's a reasonable interpretation of what they're saying in these videos. It's an obvious interpretation of what they're saying in these videos. I'm Jewish. Russell's Jewish. There's nothing anti-Semitic about noticing, hey, they're advocating the interests of Israel over that of the United States. Don't forget, an American hostage was just freed, and they are fucking pissed about it. You could tell they're angry about it. You could tell they are butthurt about the fact that an American hostage, whatever we think of him, yes, I went over a little bit of the details. Those are not relevant to this segment. What's relevant to this segment is the American president negotiated the release of an American hostage, and they are fucking crying in their Cheerios about it. What does that tell you? What does that tell you?
Yeah, and actually the hostage that we just got freed, it's interesting they don't really center this or mention it much in the coverage. He's an American who went over there to fight in the IDF.
Right.
What if you had an American go to fight in any other army? Glenn was pointing this out. That aside, like the questions of dual loyalty there to begin with, national security questions, if you have somebody that embedded in the security state of a foreign country, whether they're a threat to this country, whether they get recruited into their intelligence services without sharing that information and they're acting on behalf of a foreign intelligence service, that element of it aside, are we now obligated to be involved militarily or even diplomatically with getting that person freed when they chose to go fight in a foreign army? What if I decide to go fight in the army of China? Does America have an obligation to get me back if I get captured?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think we have an obligation, but he did take it upon himself to do it. You would think that would be good news to these America First conservatives, but no, they're actually quite upset. You could tell. Shapiro really goes there. Shapiro goes as far as to chastise the hostage for not thanking Netanyahu and instead going to Qatar to meet Trump either tomorrow or Thursday. I think tomorrow. Anyway, let's hear Shapiro. This is 9 minutes. We're only going to listen to the first couple. But here he is, well, again, clearly very upset.
And this is, I gotta say, before you get into it, because I do eavesdrop on some Zionists. This is their default view that it's that it's terrible that they have to go and kowtow to the Qataris who were acting as bagmen to fund Hamas through Netanyahu.
Right.
That part they don't seem to know about because the places they go for news don't tell them those kinds of things. And I can't blame him. I can't blame Eden because he probably feels like he has to, but it's terrible that he has to go through that humiliation ritual instead of going into Israel and thanking Netanyahu. Like this is the default view, which comes from they get their marching orders, man. This stuff comes from Mossad. It's the Hasbara that they put out, just like here in America, where everybody has the same exact point of view. All the media of a certain type has exactly the same take to such an extent that it clearly came from on high. Same thing with this. Same thing with Zionists. Only they take their marching orders from Israel, from a foreign country. The foreign country tells them what their take is supposed to be on any given subject.
All right, here is Ben Shapiro.
Clearly, what Hamas is attempting to do is basically settle all outstanding business with the United States so as to then create separation between the United States and Israel in Iran negotiations. That is what is happening with the Houthis as well. It is not a coincidence that as the Houthis are basically forswearing attacks on American shipping, and the United States is saying that the United States is no longer going to worry about the Houthis, essentially. That Hamas is now trying to do the same by releasing the sole living American hostage in the Gaza Strip, trying to basically say that the United States now has no part in that conflict. Well, okay, fine. I mean, if the United States has no part in that conflict, then Israel should just go and do what they need to do. That seems to me a proper solution with regard to the Gaza Strip.
Which, by the way, update, this broke today. I don't think I have this in the slideshow because it broke too late. Netanyahu has said they will go back in and finish the job regardless of how these meetings in the Middle East go.
Now, the ugliest part, and there is an ugly part to this, is that there are widespread rumors and now news reports that Idan Alexander is going to be flown to Qatar to meet with the Emir of Qatar. This is vile. That's vile.
See, so he goes further than your Zionist friends. He calls the guy out. He calls him vile. Fucking guy's been, again, we all know who he is. Again, just to keep it focused, because it's tempting not to keep it focused. He's been in a dungeon for 19 months. He gets out. Now you want to call him vile for not going and thanking Netanyahu, who had almost a dozen different opportunities to get him out of the dungeon. No, now he's supposed to kiss Netanyahu's feet. How dare he go to Qatar? He actually calls him vile. Wow. I mean, he is vile, but for other reasons, not for this.
He should, of course, meet with President Trump.
He's vile for the reasons that Ben Shapiro loved him until yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting that.
So in America, he can do so in Israel. There are plenty of places that Idan Alexander and his family can express their gratitude to President Trump, as well they should. Going to Qatar to meet the Emir of Qatar. Qatar is a terror sponsor country. Qatar is the number one funder of Hamas. It is disgusting to have a hostage who is taken by a group funded by Qatar go to Qatar to thank the Emir of Qatar for his freedom. That's an absurdity on its face if it were to happen. It is wrong. It should not be facilitated by the United States. Qatar is the sponsor state of Hamas. In fact, if the Trump administration seriously wanted all hostages out of Gaza, they could do so tomorrow simply by telling the Emir of Qatar that the airbase in Qatar is going away and that it'll move to the UAE, which the United States could do. That should have been the approach of the Biden administration on October 8th. They should have said all the hostages come out or the airbase goes away. That's how closely tied together Qatar and Hamas are. Well, Idan Alexander is now 21. Hamas captured him when he was 19 on October 7th, 2023, of course. Now, all of this has some wider ramifications with regard to negotiations in the Middle East. Again, Steve Witkoff continues to say ridiculous things publicly. So Steve Witkoff, who again, I do not think is a good negotiator. I do not think that Steve Witkoff has demonstrated his bona fides along any lines. So far, all of the hostage deals have essentially been kind of mediocre in the sense that maximum pressure has not been exerted on the bad guys.
See, I would say Steve Witkoff is a bad negotiator because he negotiates a photo op ceasefire so that Donald Trump can take pictures with the freed hostages at his Inauguration Day festivities. That's why I would call him a mediocre negotiator. In fact, I think mediocre is too kind. The way he's talking about Steve Witkoff, the way he's talking about these negotiations, the way he's talking about how Israel didn't get enough in exchange for these hostage releases makes it very, very clear he's angry about these hostage releases. This is supposed to be an American conservative outlet. They're all about patriotism and flag waving, and yet he's, it's clearly, you could watch, the rest of this is 7 more minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing. But the guy is clearly bitter and butthurt over the release of an American hostage. What this exposes is that he knows, and Mark Levin knows, what Netanyahu knows, which is that the goal of this is to use the hostages as justification to go in and destroy Gaza. And Netanyahu put out a statement today saying they are going to go in with full force, as if they haven't been going in with full force already, and finish the job.
They've been showing tremendous
quickly.
restraint.
Exactly. And relocating the Palestinians quickly, because Netanyahu can feel the heat now turning up under him a little bit. So he puts out a statement saying, basically, we are committed to completing our war aims, which again, you're just talking about a mask-off situation where now it is all of a sudden revealed what we all could see very, very plainly for the last year and a half, which is that the Israelis don't care about the hostages. They don't care about the hostages at all. Max Blumenthal tweeted out that Israel bombed the site where they thought Eden Alexander was, implying, I think quite smartly, that the Hannibal Directive didn't start on October 7th. They could want to take out these hostages during the war, because if they don't get the hostages back, that allows them to continue fighting. And so this really exposes just the mean-spiritedness of these people who complain when people play that loyalty card. Well, from what other interpretation? You watch Shapiro go on like that, you'd think he would be happy. Your president, who you supported, negotiated the release of the last American hostage in Gaza, and you got an American out. Right, and you got a fucking stick up your ass half a mile long about it. What does that tell you?
Right. Sure. I think, I've been positing this for a while, that my experience going to Trump events, going to MAGA events, is they do not like Zionism. They tolerate it because the boss tells them they have to tolerate it. I wish I had filmed it. It was a very revealing moment for me. I didn't go in, but I was outside the Madison Square Garden rally. I did a little bit of filming, and there was a group of Orthodox Zionist Jews there, and they were dancing around, waving Trump flags. The vibe from the MAGA people could not have been clearer. They did not want to any part of this. It was very like, fine. Like they were not happy to have to deal with that, but they wouldn't go after it because the boss made it very clear that this is part of their coalition, that this is something that he's going to back up. But they did not like it. And what you're seeing now with Daily Wire, to me, is the clearest evidence yet that that's the case. Conservative media is killing it, and Daily Wire is going bankrupt. Why? Why? They're going bankrupt because MAGA was never into this shit. The longer it goes on, and this could be why you're seeing a shift in posture from Trump, because he is politically astute. He can read the writing on the wall, man. I'm sure he saw that Marjorie Taylor Greene clip. His own allies, his own most prominent MAGA people are increasingly coming out and saying, what the fuck? Why do we have this obligation to this country? That it's so obvious they're trying to drag us into World War III. These people didn't like it with Ukraine, right? That was a big part of the argument against Biden and the Biden administration, that these people are slow marching us into World War III with Ukraine as the pretext. What? So they're going to accept Israel being the pretext, when most of these people, look, man, not only don't they like Israel, it was always a shotgun wedding. A lot of these people don't like Jews. They are deeply he's got a deep anti-Semitic vein running through that movement. And the idea of putting American blood and treasure on the line for the evil cabal of Rothschild's own people, they never liked it. And the longer it goes on, the angrier they're getting about it.
Yeah, I want to source this because I mentioned this earlier. So, yeah, this is very new, but Israeli military to enter Gaza with full force in coming days, says Netanyahu. So Netanyahu says there will be no situation where we stop the war. A temporary ceasefire might happen, but we are going all the way, Netanyahu said in a statement on Tuesday. The announcement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump tours the Middle East with no scheduled stop in Israel. So it's not an accident that Netanyahu put out that statement now, because he knows he's being snubbed on this trip.
Yep.
He knows that the Trump administration is starting to circumvent them. And so he wants to put out a statement, hey, we're not stopping. So, as long as, Donald Trump is sort of sticking a thumb in the eye of Netanyahu, and like I said, nothing's happened yet. We know so far what the hostage release and the talks with the Saudis and the talks with Iran and the ceasefire with Yemen have pissed off the hardcore Zionists. That's what we know. In terms of what's going to happen with the war on Gaza, we don't know yet, and I don't want to really get too out in front of ourselves, because so much of what is said turns out to be bullshit, right?
I mean, he's still got that Miriam money in his pocket.
He's still got it, right? Exactly. So I don't want to say like too much too soon and have to take it back on Thursday, right? Because that's very possible if we go there, right? But if you are giving this whole relationship a second thought, you know what you could do? You could let Mahmoud Khalil out of fucking jail. Like, if you're going to start sticking your thumb in their eye, then how about you let your own people speak freely about this issue? How about that? Right? How about you stop terrorizing your own people and green card holders for criticizing Israel? It just makes it's amazing to think, okay, all this is happening while we still have students getting expelled from school for criticizing Israel. Right. I mean, this like I said, this is not just geopolitics. This is about civil liberties as well. And the civil liberties, offenses that Donald Trump has committed on behalf of this country that he's now in pretty open feud with, it should be a wake up call. Hey, look, we are 3 degrees from Donald Trump, 4 degrees from Donald Trump. We don't know Donald Trump. We don't know anyone who knows Donald Trump. We know people who know people who know Donald Trump. We know people who know Tucker, who I'm sure could text Donald Trump if he wants to. We know the Rumble guys who know his son, who can get in touch with him. Maybe we can get a little telephone game going. Hey, as long as you're feuding with the Israelis, maybe let people out of jail for criticizing Israel. Maybe ease up on that. Maybe understand, as long as you understand now, you're starting to see the picture foreign policy-wise, that you're America's president, not Israel's president. Maybe you can bring those ideas back home and stop terrorizing people for protected speech under your First Amendment, which you have a duty to uphold.
On one condition, I'm going to need Gyllenhaal's daughter to recreate one of my favorite scenes from Secretary.
Yeah, exactly.
The dictation spanking scene. I like that.
Hey, if the Rumble guys are watching, can we incorporate that script into a 1775 coffee ad? Because maybe then other creators will read it and we'll get the message. Maybe if Don Jr. read that in an ad, he could tell his father, he could pass along the word.
Well, another reason before we leave this that the Zionists are freaking out is they'll deny it. They have the temerity to deny that Israel's existence is completely dependent on American support. If you push them on it, they like to try to pretend they made the desert bloom and they don't really need the United States, but they know they do. They know 5 seconds after the U.S. cuts them off, the surrounding countries will chew them up like a chocolate-covered cherry. Right. That's really what underlies the desperation. Like any sign of daylight between the U.S. and Israel, they're going to freak out, because that's the end of Israel if it were to continue, which is very unlikely given the Miriam Adelson money that it will really go in that direction. But that's a big part of what underlies that.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. All right. Milton Crow says 3rd season of Enterprise, best Star Trek plot ever. Russell should check it out. There you go.
Man, when I stopped watching it, when they got so fucking desperate for ratings that they worked into a plot line that the hot Vulcan, I can't remember what her name was, and Archer had to like rub a fucking cream on each other.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They literally did like a tanning lotion scene. Like the lotion was, some space STD or whatever the fuck it was. But they have her taking her shirt off. He's rubbing all this lotion on her. I was like, all right, man, I just can't. This is awful. This is awful.
What do we got here? We have 760 likes, so that is good for one of these. And a nice crowd in the YouTube chat, 2345, which is good for one of these.
Pretty good crowd for a Tuesday.
Not a bad crowd for a Tuesday. Smash that like button, folks, and smash that subscribe button, smash that follow button over on Rumble. Good Rumble crowd, too, knocking on the door of 1,000 in the Rumble chat. Love to see that. Mark P. Thicko says Trump the elephant tried to get into the China shop but got thrown out. Milton Crow says Trump backed down from China. Big surprise. He also backed down from Yemen, not a global powerhouse, except when it comes to standing up to Israel. That's right. Dorian Marquis, thanks for the $9.99. Trump is a 1946 boomer. His son Barron is a 19-year-old NYU student who trolls these podcasts. Barron saw Trump's approval tanking. This is just damage control for MAGA. Trump still erased Arab children. Well, of course, obviously. Like I said, we have not entertained a lot of the rumblings of these past week. We could have done 7 segments this past week on what's going to happen when he gets to the
he
Middle
might
East.
recognize Palestine.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Did Daddy look at me? Did Daddy look at me? Everybody better help Daddy.
Right.
Everybody better forget everything that happened over the last 3 months. If you don't get on board with Daddy, you're a bad progressive who just doesn't want to work any productive things with the administration.
Yeah,
it's so pathetic. It's so sad.
Yeah,
So sad.
which is why we did, I'm trying to stick to what has happened already. We know he did free Eden Alexander, and the so-called America First Zionist conservatives melted down, so we can report that. That's not speculation. That happened. In terms of what's going to happen with the Russia-Ukraine talks this week, what's going to happen in Qatar tomorrow. We don't know. There's been a lot of ink spilled over what might happen, and we've tried not to engage that because so much of what they say turns out to be fucking bullshit. I mean, you're talking about Donald Trump. You're talking about a guy who said, yeah, we can cut our military budget in half. You know what I mean? They could be one of those, right?
But I will say if he vaguely signals or nods towards the idea of possibly at some point in the future, after multiple talks and several years, recognizing a Palestinian state, he will be the greatest president of all time, hands down.
Yeah,
Abe
exactly.
Lincoln, fuck off, man. Trump all the way, baby.
Big Papa Mau Mau says the Israeli spokesperson had so much rage at the question, his face literally started twitching like he has fucking Parkinson's. Yeah, no, he was very angry by it, very triggered by that. China Shill says China, pair of twos, America, dick in hand. Good one, China Shill. Appreciate that. China Shill says, am I racist? This tweet about the Great Replacement should answer that for you, Matt. Thank you. Yes. Let's see here. America was brown first. The native populations are repopulating our native land, which is inevitable. White supremacy in America is like getting mad about all the Chinese in China. Thank you. China Shill says, meanwhile, there are videos of Palestinian children being burned, shot, torn limb from limb, but it's a genocide in South Africa. Yeah, no, I mean, that is gallows humor coming from Donald Trump right there. Wow, Russell, the white South African Holocaust denier. Thank you, E.O. Shush. Let's see. Someone on Twitter posted a video of a road with hundreds of white crosses lined up alongside and claimed it was a dead white South Afrikaners. Did the internet lie to me? Did the internet lie to you? I don't know. I'd have to take a look. I can't say that for sure. Noah Goop, can we please hold a vote to bring Darryl Cooper onto the DD network? There you go. Yeah.
That fucking snowflake blocked us personally and professionally on X.
That's right.
Our personal accounts and the DD account.
Yes, indeed. This guy looks and sounds like Blinken. You're talking about Scott Besson, I think. Yeah. You don't understand. Trump is playing 3D shoots and ladders. Thank you for that, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. All right. So now we're going to do our very best to bring you what news we can from the day. Now, this is all breaking pretty quick, but one thing we do know, Trump and Saudis secure a $600 billion investment deal to include billions in U.S. defense weapons. President Trump on Tuesday secured a $600 billion commitment from Saudi Arabia to invest in the United States, along with a multi-billion-dollar defense partnership following a meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh. The investment, according to a White House fact sheet, will strengthen energy security, defense technology, and access to global infrastructure and critical minerals. It includes a $142 billion defense and security deal that equips Saudi Arabia with state-of-the-art war equipment provided by dozens of U.S. firms. Cha-ching. War machine paid. Money in the bank, bitches. The equipment include air and missile defenses and Air Force and space advancements. The White House called the deal historic and transformative for both countries and said it brings in a new golden era of partnership. Days after Trump's inauguration, the Crown Prince first announced that the Arab nation would invest $600 billion in the U.S. over the 4 years of Trump's second term. The White House details those investments following the meeting in Saudi Arabia. As part of the deal, Saudi Arabian company DataVolt is moving forward with plans to invest $20 billion in AI data centers and energy infrastructure in the U.S., and top companies like Google, Oracle, Salesforce, and Uber, among others, are investing $80 billion in technologies in both countries. Oh, that's good to know. Maybe the YouTube community guidelines will be influenced by that. Also included in the deal are infrastructure projects American companies Hill International, Jacobs Parsons, and AECOM are taking on in Saudi Arabia, including at King Salman International Airport, to total $2 billion in U.S. services exports. Several sector-specific funds will be created through the investment partnership, including a $5 billion energy investment fund, $5 billion New Era Aerospace and Defense Technology Fund, and $4 billion Enfield Sports Global Sports Fund. President Trump is the deal maker in chief, and he has once again secured a historic deal that strengthens America's economic dominance and global influence, the White House fact sheet said. Now, there's a little catch, maybe a little catch. Maybe this is unrelated, or maybe this is a little art of the deal shit going on, because we mentioned how Trump was going to engage in nuclear talks with the Saudis that would not necessarily require them to recognize Israel, saying, in true New York fashion, selling you $140 billion worth of these big, beautiful weapons. Maybe, it would go a long way. It'd be nice if you could maybe recognize Israel. So Trump calls on Saudi Arabia to join Abraham Accords recognizing Israel. President Trump, now I'm sure there's video of this that just hasn't surfaced on X yet, or maybe it has now since we started the show. We might put that in the clip version of this when we do it, but for now we're just going to have to read. President Trump called on Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel during a speech to the oil-rich kingdom's leaders on Tuesday, saying, "You'll be greatly honoring me by doing so." Hey, you really get me out of a jam, Really get me off the couch at the Miriam Adelson house. Trump frequently referred to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman by name during his speech as the country's de facto ruler watched from the front row. With the historic Abraham Accords that we're so proud of, all the momentum was aimed at peace, aimed very successfully, Trump said. It's been an amazing thing, the Abraham Accords, and it's my fervent hope, wish, and even my dream that Saudi Arabia, a place I have such respect for, I'm sure, especially over the last fairly short period of time, what you've been able to do, but will soon be joining the Abraham Accords. Trump added, "I think it'll be a tremendous tribute to your country, and it will be something that's really going to be very important for the future of the Middle East. I took a risk in doing them, and they've been an absolute bonanza for the countries that have joined the Biden administration, did nothing for 4 years." Trump also used the speech to threaten Iran with massive maximum pressure and drive Iranian oil exports to zero if Tehran doesn't agree to a new nuclear deal. The time is right now for them to choose is right now. We don't have a lot of time, Trump said. So the big development of the day so far, at least that we know at this recording, 3:53 p.m. here on the East Coast, is that investment deal. And the fact that Trump said that he was going to enter into nuclear talks with the Saudis without necessarily recognition of Israel as a prerequisite doesn't seem to have been proven nor disproven at this time. But he did ask them to recognize Israel. And maybe he's using that big deal that he just inked with them as not necessarily leverage, but hey, you know, we did you this good thing. Maybe do something for me. He says you'll be honoring me by doing it. I would consider it a great favor if you did that for me.
Listen, Miriam, she has the 6-inch, she has the 9-inch, and then she has the 15-inch. And you don't want her to use that on you, believe me. So do me a favor, because when I get back to the White House, she's going to have those laid out on the bed, and it's really going to depend on what I walk away with from this meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. You know, the Saudis have their own reasons to not agree to something like that, like violent overthrow, because of where they are, because they have Mecca within their territory. They have a certain role within the Muslim world of being the stewards of Islam, which makes decisions like that taken by the Saudis in particular charged in a way that it wouldn't be for, say, the Qataris.
Right.
And you could whip up a movement towards violent overthrow of the royal family if they did something like that. So Trump asking them to do it, I don't know how far that goes beyond the request.
You know, that's right. I forgot all about Mecca. It's an old-fashioned word, Mecca. It's like groceries. You don't really hear people say Mecca anymore. You don't hear much about Mecca these days.
Like groceries, it's like one income household.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I mean, it's not terribly like I wasn't terribly surprised when I read that he was kind of nudging them to do it. That's a very New York real estate move where you have two clients who, you know, don't really like each other very much, but you have a vested interest in getting them to the table and getting, oh, hey, come on, please. All right, can we do this? I know, yeah, you don't want to do it. Now I know that they don't like you, you don't like them, but can we make something happen? You know, really be getting me out of a jam. So we'll see what happens. That's the best we could do for you folks there. We're just trying to keep you as updated as possible, this being a news and politics podcast and all. But hey, for all we know, there are developments breaking right now. Okay. Let's see here. Noah Goop, markets rallying over tariffs going down to 50% is hilarious, considering that's what makes them crash in the first place. Thank you for that.
It's just ridiculous, man.
It's Vito P. Always a great show. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. You rock, Vito P. Thank you for the generous donation. Appreciate it. Trump has threatened to cut UN World Food Program funding if UN rejects U.S. scheme, which includes armed Israeli contractors distributing aid. Genocide will continue. I have not seen that headline yet today. Thank you for that. Noah Goop, Al Jazeera reporting Netanyahu is saying he expects 50% of the population of Gaza to be gone in the coming days. Does he mean gone as in displaced or killed? You see this whole thing. I mean, it is. Look. On the one hand, you kind of like that he's bypassing Israel and not going there. But on the other hand, this does kind of push Netanyahu to a place where he could escalate it even further. They're psychos.
Right.
I mean, they're absolute psychos. Like, you have no idea what they'll do. There's nothing they won't do. You always have to keep that in mind. So we will see how that turns out, of course. Okay. This is yours, Russell. What do we got here? Oh yeah, prescription drugs.
All right. This is going to be something we haven't gotten to do in quite a while, not because of a bias, as some would have it, but because of the administration's own actions. This is going to be a more or less positive story about the administration, I must say. So we were actually on the air when this self-proclaimed most important statement of any president ever of all time, or something to that effect, came out. For many years, the world has wondered why prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals in the United States of America were so much higher in price than they were in any other nation. sometimes being 5 to 10 times more expensive than the same drug manufactured in the exact same laboratory or plant by the same company. It was always difficult to explain and very embarrassing because, in fact, there was no correct or rightful answer. The pharmaceutical drug companies would say for years that it was research and development costs, and that all of these costs were and would be, for no reason whatsoever, borne by the suckers of America alone. Campaign contributions can do wonders, but not with me. Donald, you want the 6-inch or you want the 15? And not with the Republican Party. We are going, yeah, we are going to do the right thing, something that the Democrats have fought for many years. Therefore, I am pleased to announce that tomorrow morning in the White House at 9 a.m., I will be signing one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. Prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30 to 80%. They will rise throughout the world in order to equalize, and for the first time in many years, bring fairness to America. I will be instituting a most favored nations policy whereby the United States will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world. Our country will finally be treated fairly, and our citizens' healthcare costs will be reduced by numbers never even thought of before. Additionally, on top of everything else, the United States will save trillions of dollars. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Now, we have said many times over the years that if the MAGA movement, so-called, leaned into actually catering to the working class base that they stole from the Democrats over the years, they'd be unstoppable. I mean, and you know, they might still be unstoppable, frankly. I think they've done a lot of things. I know they've done a lot of things that are deeply unpopular, even with their own voters. This is the kind of thing they should really be doing and focusing on. And even with the things that they've been doing that their voters don't like, this is a smart move if he can actually pull it off, because we've said it over and over again. People will put up with a lot of trampling of civil liberties if they see their costs go down, if they actually see good economic results from this administration. Now, we'll get into a little bit whether this is doable or not doable, but I would say, just to give a little bit of a pre-take, hey, however that plays out in the courts, he's putting a certain amount of pressure on the pharmaceutical companies that what's so damaging for the Democrats about this, it obviously begs the question, well, why didn't Biden do it? Why didn't Obama do it? Like, if you could, even if it's just a pressure tactic, why didn't they do that? Right? The entire time they've been presenting themselves if they're trying to fight the pharmaceutical companies. And, you know, we've always known that they would go this far and no further because they were owned by them. But
Right.
this really exposes how limited their efforts really were by comparison to what they might have done in theory, even if it's only tactical to force a conversation.
Right. Well, even if it fails, I mean, even if it fails,
Right.
it's a good political stunt because it pits you against the courts. The courts
Of
are
course.
representing in the public mind at that point the interests of big
Big
pharma,
pharma.
whereas you are trying to take them down. Now, even if you know it's going to fail politically, it still makes sense,
Right.
and it
There's
still
no
makes the
downside.
Democrats look like they were never trying in the first place, which, you know, they weren't.
They weren't, right? And that's what this really it exposes to very damaging effect. So here's RFK fresh out of the poop river. Hopefully he changed his shorts before the press conference. But this is what he had to say. And hey, man, when he's right, he's right. He threw it right back at the Democrats.
But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people.
Well, that part's
I
not
don't
true.
know what, you know, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich, who are saying that President Trump is on the side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine.
Speaking of intestinal fortitude, people are saying I shouldn't have swum in that ship river. I'm starting to feel a little pinch in the behind.
People have intestinal fortitude. I always thought Giardia was fake, but not so much now.
And your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world's population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country 11.
Okay, so yeah, hey man, at the end of the day, sure, it makes the Democrats look terrible because they always, whenever they've gotten confronted on why they don't do more, they blame the Republicans, they blame the process, they blame the courts, they blame the rules, they blame the strictures of regulation. And look what he did. And he's been doing things like this over and over again, where even if you're going to have to wrangle with the courts, you're getting a lot more done than the Democrats ever did in a lot of areas where they've said they are the champions by contrast to the GOP. Now, Trump stands up to oligarchs. I mean, we've always said the thing with Trump is, there's one bullet empty in the Russian roulette chamber. Like, yeah, sometimes he will. Often he won't. In terms of his general policy, he doesn't. But, hey, we don't have to ask, would a Democrat do this? They haven't. They haven't. Obama was playing with a much better hand than Trump is playing in terms of his mandate. In terms of the balance of Congress, he didn't do any shit like this. What's their excuse?
No, of course, obviously.
Go
ahead.
All right, so this is the part of the press conference that grabbed all the headlines. Trump explains why he decided to make this such a priority, and is so often the case with Trump. It's because somebody said a thing to him.
I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up.
And he went blind.
And he said,
can't see anymore.
President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I paid
just ate a quart of ice cream. I'm still hungry.
What the hell is going on?
Who is he talking about? He says it's a guy you would all know. Who's a fat business guy?
Maybe it's Lutnick.
Who likes? Yeah, right. Lutnick. Yeah.
Lutnick's pretty fat.
No, Lutnick seems like Lutnick's not fat.
Come on, he's a little sausage. That guy.
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't think so. It's got to be someone else. I don't know.
Maybe Pritzker. Maybe he's talking to Pritzker.
Yeah, Pritzker.
Yeah. Okay, so he goes on to say now. I've seen Trump lie in real time when I went to the Braga rally. It gave me a sense of how he sounds when he's doing it. I think he's probably making this up, but nonetheless, no real political downside to this story.
With the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart, good person too. And we argued about it for about half hour, and then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, look, you got me. You got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit.
I very much doubt that story's true, but hey, the point is still well taken. So here's his more extended remarks as he signed the executive order.
see a tremendous cut. I don't think. I mean, I know you're going to see it in Medicaid and Medicare. That cut will be massive because drugs are 50-60% of the cost. So Medicaid costs are going down and Medicare costs are going down because of what we're doing today. And there's no, it's not like, oh, gee, well, maybe it won't happen. It's going to happen because the other countries have no choice. Now, the drug companies are going to have to say, listen, if you don't pay more, we're not going to give you the drug, and they're willing to do that. So that's it. They have to, we have to equalize.
Mr. President, what is the price controls?
Say it?
How do you respond to the fact that this...
It's not price control, no. What was price control is before. If you want to talk about price control is what they were doing. They were making us pay. They set a price, and they said, here's what we're going to pay, and anything else charge America. Because at that time, they had a very stupid president, and it really went crazy during the last 4 years. And remember this, the Democrats are the ones that allowed this to happen. They were the ones that were the protector of this pricing system. And I think it's going to be very hard. You'll have to ask Democrats, are they going to vote against the one great, big, beautiful deal that's being negotiated now, tax cuts, etc., when now on top of the tax cuts and regulation cuts, all the things, now you're going to say that the price of your medicine is going down by 60, 70, 80%. You're going to vote against it? I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to do something that their leaders are going to beg them not to do, and that's vote for the bill. I don't see how they can vote against it. How can they vote against it when drug prices, drugs and pharmaceuticals are going to be down 70, 80%? It's going to be very interesting.
Mr. President, what...
So he's laying out the political calculus right there. And I would say in regards to the bill, he's talking about the budget bill, that really depends on what else is in it. Like if there are massive Medicaid cuts, I think it would be very easy for them to vote against it, whatever they do with pharmaceuticals. I will say this in terms of why Trump would be willing to do this, because he's not wrong that the Democrats won't, in spite of the fact that obviously in opposition to the GOP, they've been the ones to bring up this issue. Whereas the GOP have defended the pharma companies. But in the end, the Democrats have just defended them while damning them, right? I think part of that, when you see these moments where Trump pisses off the oligarchs, you got to remember, I think it's partly what Thomas Frank says, that Obama and all the people around Obama, these guys are all from the Ivy League. They all come from the same places. They belong to the same fraternities. So the guy working over at Goldman Sachs and the guy working over at Pfizer, these are all the people who went to the same schools that you went to. And, the way Thomas Frank put it in one interview that he did is, and that's your friend from MIT. He didn't mean to crash the economy. He's a good guy. He didn't mean to do it. I think there's a personal class identification that most of the kinds of people that today dominate the Democratic Party have with the same people who are lobbying them on behalf of these pharmaceutical companies that Trump does not have. And that sounds strange. Well, he's rich. Yeah, man. I mean, but his branch of rich is not integrated into that Rockefeller Northeastern elite kind of rich. It just isn't. I think for a lot of the kind of wealthy, upper class, well-educated set that surrounded Obama, a guy like Trump, he's a gauche. He's gauche. Right. He's a gauche real estate guy. He's a schmata guy. He's a schmata guy who got rich to them. And that makes him much more willing to piss them off because he doesn't see them as his people, even though economically they may be.
Yeah, and I also think, in terms of like the lobbying side of pharma, part of why they pay both Democrats and Republicans is because of the obvious reason, which is that one is an insurance policy against the other. So no matter who's in power, you got someone in there who is responsive to you. The other part of this, of course, is, if you bribe both sides, not in necessarily equal measure, but pretty close in terms of pharma contributions, it's pretty close between the Democrat and the GOP in terms of, who on a whole gets the most pharma money. As long as that balance is relatively close, then you have a lot of leverage over each of these sides when they're in power. Hey, you tip the scale too far against me. I'm already paying them across the street. I'll just take more money across the street, and now you're going to be at a major deficit. But, when we did the piece on Sunday about the cost of giving birth in America versus all these other countries, you kind of saw a small sort of snapshot of the dynamic that Trump is talking about there. And it is true that part of the reason why other countries pay so little is because we are, as he mentioned in that truth post, we are the suckers who they get to just fleece. Now, they get to fleece us because we have a privatized healthcare system, and the government is very, very limited into how it can negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies and the medical device companies, which I guess that's not covered in this order here. So yeah, it of course is extremely lopsided, and we of course subsidize the cheap and or free healthcare that people get around the world. I mean, there's no question about that. There is a big question as to how pharma will react if this actually goes through. Do they charge the other countries more? Can they get away with that? What will happen in that respect? My guess is this is not going to go through, but it is still a political win for him, even if it doesn't go through.
All right, so this is a little detail about those factors. So this is from Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump signed a wide-reaching executive order on Monday directing drug makers to lower the prices of their medicines to align with what other countries pay that analysts and legal experts said would be difficult to implement. The order gives drug makers price targets in the next 30 days and will take further action to lower prices if those companies do not make, quote, significant progress toward those goals. The order was not as bad as feared, investors, analysts, and drug pricing experts said, and they questioned how it would be implemented. Shares of drug makers, which had been down on the threat of most favored nation pricing, recovered and rose on Monday. So that is revealing. The investor class is not taking it seriously. Trump told a press conference that the government would impose tariffs if the prices in the U.S. did not match those in other countries, and said he was seeking cuts of between 59 and 90%. Everybody should equalize. Everybody should pay the same price, Trump said. The United States pays the highest prices for prescription drugs, often nearly 3 times more than other developed nations. Trump tried in his first term to bring the U.S. in line with other countries, but was blocked by the courts. If drug makers do not meet the government's expectations, it will use rulemaking to bring drug prices to international levels and consider a range of other measures, including importing medicines from other developed nations and implementing export restrictions, a copy of the order showed. Trump's order directs the government to consider facilitating direct-to-consumer purchasing programs that would sell drugs at the prices other countries pay. Trade groups representing biotech and pharmaceutical companies decried the move. That's one indication that he's on the right track. Quote, importing foreign prices from socialist countries would be a bad deal for American patients and workers. It would mean less treatments and cures and would jeopardize the hundreds of billions our member companies are planning to invest in America, Stephen Ubel, CEO of Industry Trade Group Pharma, said in a statement. Now, you do know they're running scared, because if you look at the way they crafted that sentence, they crafted it specifically to be as MAGA as possible. You know, you got the socialist countries,
right.
And you got, we're going to invest in America. They really went out of their way. So, speaking of the Democrats, there is no good response to this. You're busted. You're busted. You're busted. But they're going to try. So here's Jasmine Crockett said, this man told you all he had the concepts of a plan. And it turns out the plan was to ask Big Pharma nicely and hope for the best. Folks are rationing insulin, and he's out here signing executive suggestions. Be serious. Yeah, that's not going to fly, Jasmine. Try again. Go ahead, bring it back into the workshop there. And Chris Jackson, she's right. Trump's executive order does nothing but ask Big Pharma to negotiate, something they can just refuse. Joe Biden actually passed a law. Medicare can now negotiate drug prices. Insulin is capped and seniors are saving money. Trump talked. Biden delivered. Biden delivered very little. He delivered some minimal savings. The insulin thing was good, but he delivered minimum savings on a very limited number of drugs. What, 12 drugs?
Yeah,
that was
very
limited
small.
to. So asking the peasants to be happy with the crumbs in the face of this is not a good look. It's not good politics. Now, if Trump, as he is wont to do, just kind of forgets about it, because clearly it's not this simple, he's going to have to actually take the kinds of actions described here. Well, okay, if we can't do it this way, well, then we'll find another way. We'll directly import from foreign companies. We'll from foreign countries. We'll impose tariffs. Well, is he going to do that? Is he going to pay that kind of attention? Is he going to listen to the last person he spoke to? Or are they going to bring in a bunch of people that he is personally well disposed to lobby him? We'll see. And then that's the time to maybe mount this kind of an attack. But even on the MAGA side, not like those guys have clean hands in all this. Top GOP senator, this is John Thune. Drug pricing action unlikely before end of year. And they're getting attacked by MAGA. Senate Majority Leader Thune is making excuses as to why the Senate cannot codify President Trump's executive order to lower prescription drug prices and claims this could be controversial. Since 1997, Senator Thune has received over $1.2 million in donations from Big Pharma. And here from another account, Majority Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson push back on Trump's executive order to lower prescription drug prices. Thune, over $1.9 million from Big Pharma. Johnson, $300K since 2018. Should leaders who take pharma money be allowed to block drug price reforms? You know, they sound like lefties.
Yeah, right.
They sound like lefties, and this is what we've said all along. If MAGA, if Trump really oriented this toward working class concerns, yeah, man. I mean, do you see these people screaming about socialism? That's socialism.
Right,
Do you see them screaming about socialism? The problem is they're so malleable. They're so caught up in the cult of the great leader that when Trump says, yeah, no, these white South Africans, that's different. They go, yeah, that's different, right? Like it does, but this really shows you, yeah, man. Like if he really did address these kinds of concerns, the Republicans would be unbeatable for a generation. And because the Democrats' response is that, what we just read from Jasmine Crockett, they might still be unbeatable. You know, I mean, I would not assume that Trump is in as much trouble in the midterms as advertised.
I would. I think they're at this rate, they're going to take a bath in the midterms. I mean, they can turn it around, but I think
the Democrats are so awful. They've lost nothing. They've learned nothing. Rather, they're about to oust David Hogg.
Yeah, I still think.
David
I think
Hogg
that's why
is
they're
too
going to oust
radical
David
for
Hogg.
them.
Yeah. No, but I think that's why they're going to oust David Hogg. I think they're doing that because they feel like all they have to do is nothing and trust that the Republicans will implode, which at this rate, I think they will. Like I said, anything can change. I mean, I'm not registering a prediction. We're talking about 18 months from now. So like anything can happen. But yeah, no, look, obviously, I mean, they don't have an answer to this. They never had an answer to this. They didn't want to talk about health care at all post ACA. It's very obvious that the Democrats were not interested in litigating this any further once Obamacare passed. I mean, for all the bullshit about how no, we're going to have a public option, we knew that was nonsense. It wasn't even worth debating that. I mean, it was so obvious during the 2016 campaign that Obamacare was it. And then what did they say? She said, we're going to strengthen Obamacare. That means nothing. You know, right. Biden talks about a public option, never even came up during his 4 years. Wasn't that he made some superficial attempt? No, it never even came up. So, yeah, no, they are just a dead-end status quo party, which is why this makes good political sense. I don't think it's going to happen. I still think pharma throws around enough money to both parties where it's not going to happen, and I think it's questionable whether it would hold up in court. But
well, that's
we'll
what stopped him last
that.
time. He didn't go this far, but he tried to kind of buy fiat, bring down drug prices last time, and he was stopped in the courts. So.
Right, and this is an instance where the courts can actually stop it. This is not we're putting a guy on a plane and flying him out of the country, and what are they going to do? Right, this isn't about physically moving things from around, and if you don't have the infrastructure to actually go and get Kilmar Garcia back, they can just tell you to go fuck yourself. No, like if the courts strike this down, that will pretty much be the end of it, and I think that will happen if I had to guess. But it does expose the Democrats for being just completely useless on this issue, which had been a big issue for them. And if you can create enough conversations like this, you may have a chance in the midterms, right? Because the Democrats are so bad. But you have to get these into the conversation. And again, I go back to when you're shipping people off to torture prisons with no due process, and 88% of the country says you can't do that, and you do it anyway, it's pretty hard to make the conversation about something else, especially if you can't get it through, right? Especially if you can't do it, right? It's one thing if you could do it. Like if you could actually put wins on the board that are truly populist and truly progressive economic policies, maybe. But people are going to have to see results before they take your word for it in terms of how the midterms go.
Yeah, well, what the Trump administration has demonstrated is how much a determined executive can do extra constitutionally and extra legally if they want without real consequences and moving 5 steps ahead while the courts are still on square one. If they really, really want to fuck with the pharmaceutical companies, they can. And if you look at all the possible avenues they laid out, if they approach this the way they've approached illegally deporting people to torture prisons, where it's as soon as a court shuts this avenue down, they're going this way and doing that. If they did that, yeah, man. I mean, at the very least, you would cause so many problems for them that they would be forced to bring down drug prices. They would be forced to seriously negotiate with the administration. The big question is, does Trump have the attention span? Does he have the interest? And given that if they did have that kind of follow through, there will be increasing pressure from people who give a lot of money to the Republican Party for him to stop, would he actually continue?
Yes, I think that makes sense for sure. All right, folks. Hey, if you like what we do here, the best way to help us do more of it by far is to become a member. The links are right on the screen there. DoDissidents.com/Patreon, DoDissidents.com/Substack, or DoDissidents.com/Locals. When you sign up for just $5 a month, you get your name here on the show scroll. You also get call-in access to our weekly Q&As, which happen after the Sunday night stream exclusively on Rumble. You also get monthly film club live streams. We're going to start the post-show post-game. Once a month, we're going to do a special members-only post-game, which will take place immediately following one of our regularly scheduled live streams. We'll do extra content and take your calls. So we give you quite a bit for it. You also get email the following day after every live stream with a link to watch the show on replay ad-free. So full ad-free replays of every live stream emailed to you the day after every stream. So if you miss one and you want to watch it back, you get to do so ad-free, just as if you're watching live. And so that's dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Links are on the top of the screen there. Thank you very much for your support. Our supporters are certainly the backbone of the operation here, no doubt about that. Siddhartha Visha says, I want an action movie about you fighting for China. My colorblind casting picks for you are Michael B. Jordan, Iko Uwais, or CGI Ed Asner. Ed Asner. Really?
Ed Asner.
Really? Who's Ed Asner? None of us are that old. None of us are that small. Wow. Yassine Miller, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that. Ovon the King says, Ben gets no bitches. Thank you for that. Eric Rousseau, we don't want to lose our Jesus bait. The line is tugging. Thank you for that, Eric Rousseau. We just saw Rush channel his inner buddy Hackett. Thank you for that, my real name. Appreciate that. Noah Goop, I love the Saudi royal family. They build indoor lakes and ride jet skis on them. Tim Dillon, there you go. I have basic cable with my extended stay hotel, so watch Jon Stewart TDS last night. TDS is a pun. Jon still has comedy chops. Oh, The Daily Show, got it. Michael Hastings died for McChrystal to explain away Jolani last night. Where did that happen? Was that on the Jon Stewart show? I didn't see that. Stoop sign, Qatari oligarchs paid Trump $400 million in the form of a jet. RFK, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It just got released. Thank you for that. That evil bastard will be one of the funniest, has to be one of the funniest people on the planet. Yes, he is funny, for sure. Otacon says, I know Pompeo isn't in the cabinet anymore, but he's definitely on that Zempic. Yes, he must be. He must be. I wonder if that's who he was talking about.
Yeah, he's not a very
Pompeo.
successful businessman.
Yes, yes. And the Ozempic definitely worked on Pompeo. He is a very thin man now. Does this mean we could finally get some Primo Thai sticks at reduced prices? Thank you, Eric Russo. Appreciate that. Okay, what else we got here? All right, let's keep on moving on here. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Please smash that like button and that subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button over there on Rumble. All right, folks, this might not be a scary segment for you all, but it's a scary segment for guys like ourselves. Twitch star Hasanabi says he was detained and questioned by border agents. Hasan Piker, a popular Turkish-American online streamer who has been a vocal critic of President Donald Trump, said Monday that he was detained and questioned at length by Customs and Border Protection officers upon returning to the United States over the weekend. Piker, a U.S. citizen, that's right, he was born in New Jersey, who streams on Twitch under the name Hasanabi, said in a live stream that he was taken aside after landing at Chicago O'Hare International Airport from Paris on Sunday, despite being enrolled in Global Entry, a CBP program that is supposed to give expedited clearance to pre-approved low-risk travelers returning to the U.S. Piker said he was brought to a detention room inside O'Hare that had fluorescent light bulbs, the whole 9 yards, quote unquote, and where a CBP agent questioned him for about 2 hours about his job, his political affiliation, his opinion of Trump, and whether he had any connections to terrorist groups. That's right. So we have a couple of short excerpts from his live stream. This is one tweeted out from Hasanabi Productions meme account. Twitch streamer Hasan Piker confirms that the Trump administration has been monitoring him for some time. Let's take a look at this.
Fuck I was, but he was basically, he knew exactly who the fuck I was, but he was basically like, he always made it seem as though he was asking certain things that after discovering in the process of that conversation, he would ask additional questions. So he kept saying, what do you do as a job? Do you talk about the news? And I was like, yeah, I talk about the news. And he kept saying, okay, so when you talk about the news, do you talk about the war? And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, do you talk about Trump? And that was the first time where I was like, what the fuck is this question? Like, I literally straight up told him, I was like, why are you asking me this? Like, I was like, what does this have to do with anything? Yeah, they asked me about my fucking Twitch bans, chat. It's not even a joke. They asked me about fucking Twitch chat. Like, Twitch bans.
He was banned from Twitch for making a joke that was perceived as a threat against Rick Scott. won't say exactly what it was for fear of tripping a censor ourselves, but that's what the ban was.
The reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the fuck up. And for me, I'm going to use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what the fuck they're doing. Okay?
Okay, now, I don't really pay attention to Hasan very much. He did that big debate with Ethan Klein that I didn't bother watching. It's a separate corner of the space that I don't pay much attention to. I really don't think much about him. I don't really have much of an opinion of him. I never watch his stuff. I really, don't really care what he has to say most of the time about most things. Not one of the creators I frequent. But this is A, chilling, and B, I do have to say, assuming what he's saying is true there, and that he knew that him being, a visible rich person such as himself had a little more rope than the average person would, and so rather than clam up and plead the fifth, he kind of teased out some answers to see how far they would take it. That is a good deed on his part, because it does give people a sense of where they're going with this. If you just plead the fifth on everything, they understand, okay, this guy's not cooperating. I guess we'll let him go or wait until we have something. But this is just absolutely insane that you would be detained for 2 hours upon returning to the United States and ask questions like this. So we have a little more here. Dropsite put a clip out. We're going to play the second half of this, and some of it is a bit repetitive. But Twitch streamer and political commentator Hasan Piker was detained for several hours at Chicago O'Hare Airport May 11th after returning from France. Piker described the experience as a clear attempt to intimidate and silence political dissent. He was eventually released, having committed no crime other than thinking critically and out loud on the internet.
Take note of that I thought was very interesting was the fact that a lot of the shit that like the Ethan Kleins of the world have like cried about over and over again were unironically brought up in that fucking conversation. I was shocked. Okay, not like the bleach sword, obviously, but like the Houthi. Like, did you interview a Houthi? It says here that you interviewed a Houthi. And I was like, or was he actually a Houthi? And I was like, he's not. You can look to all of the reporting that came out afterwards and before I interviewed him that he is not he's not a Houthi, that he is a regular Yemeni citizen. And I said, like, his name is Rashid al-Haddad. He is not even a Shia. And the dude, luckily, again, Iraqi, went, oh, yeah, that's right. That's a Sunni last name. Al-Haddad is a Sunni last name. So he must not have been a Houthi. And the very fact that that was like a point of contention that could have fucking gotten me arrested is insane. And I genuinely, in that moment, was thinking like, these fucking dumbass slop tubers are actually playing with fucking fire.
Yeah, so obviously, look, he's extremely visible. He has a lot of detractors. The Free Press wrote this big article about, you know, how he supports terror and things like that. And so, yeah, he is on the radar of people. And look, we know that the government is taking their cues on who to roust, who to hassle, based on lists that are given to them by organizations like Batar, Canary Mission. Max Blumenthal tweeted out a picture of him with the Batar logo, so I guess they're, you know, there's nothing they could really out about him. He's a public figure. As I understand, they didn't get into those kinds of details. But yeah, man, you get on their radar and they do what they can to you. He's an American citizen, so they can't just pull him off the street and throw him in a cage the way they could with Rumeyza Ozturk. But if he leaves the country and he comes back and he is subject to a customs check or a border check, that's where they fuck you up. This is why Russell says he's not sure if he wants to go to China. Like, you're not worried about getting out. You're worried about getting back in.
Yeah.
You're worried about getting back in.
It's totally
insanity.
shifted.
It's
totally
it's fucking
shifted.
insane. Yeah.
Yep. My
Absolutely
concern before was like, well, am I going to be okay in China? Now it's, am I going to be okay coming back here?
Coming back here. It's fucking crazy. It's fucking I mean, these are egregious First Amendment violations. Now, of course, is it a violation to pull you aside and ask you a question? Well, I would argue, yes, that is, you know, in itself a violation of the spirit of the First Amendment. Now, until they charge you, can they say, "Hey, we're just asking you questions"? Well, that's the post 9/11 world, man. That's the post 9/11 world. That's what they can fucking.
We're just
do to you now.
jawboning here.
Right, we're just jawboning. Hey, we're just pulling you aside, and as the administration claims ridiculously here, it was a random check. Oh yeah, we just happened to pull aside Hasan Piker. Tricia McLaughlin, Homeland Security Assistant Secretary, appeared to confirm that Piker was held for questioning, but disputed any claims that political beliefs triggered his inspection. Our officers are following the law, not agendas. Oh, yeah, McLaughlin said in a statement on Monday. Upon entering the country, this individual was referred for further inspection, a routine, lawful process that occurs daily and can apply for any traveler. Once his inspection was complete, he was promptly released. Okay, so if it wasn't his political beliefs that triggered his inspection, what the fuck was it? Are you suggesting it was just at random? They just happened to,
happened to
Hasan Piker out of the
grab
crowd.
one of the most famous left YouTubers on the planet.
Yeah.
Twitch streamers, rather.
Yeah. He is not alone. He is not alone. As Common Dreams reports, leftist online creators say they've been detained and questioned over anti-Trump content. It happened, said progressive online political commentator Hasan Piker on Sunday in a cryptic post on the social media site X, one that suggested he wasn't altogether surprised when he was detained for several hours by border agents at a Chicago airport after flying back to the U.S. from France. Yeah, I don't know why you would be terribly surprised. Like, like it's a deterrence for me to like leave the country, because
why does this randomly happen to Jordan Peterson? He's literally dressed like a Batman villain.
Yes, and crossing the border regularly.
To you? Guy dressed as Harvey Two-Face, that doesn't trigger any alarms.
I've come to Florida to appear on the Dave Rubin program. I assure you, I pose no threat. I come in peace.
riddle me this, Ice.
Yes. Piker shared his story as TikTok creator Savannah Pinder, who makes anti-Trump videos and clothing, said publicly that she had been detained at Miami International Airport after passing through global entry. Pinder was taken to several different screening rooms and questioned about her work, travel history, and her father's citizenship status. Her father was born in Panama and became a U.S. citizen. Pinder is a U.S. citizen and was born and raised in the United States. So from the sounds of it, she is not even like a pro-Palestine influencer. Right. She's just more of a lib who trashes Trump fairly superficially from what I can tell. But here's about a minute and a half of her talking about what she went through.
My passport, all my bags, they had, after taking my phone, my passport, all my bags, they had asked me when, where, and why if I had any trips planned, and when, where, and why, and for how long. I had no clue. I still don't have a clue. I do not plan to leave the U.S. yet. So I answered no, and he proceeded to literally scream in my face 4 times, and I told him no every single time. After about 2.5 hours to 3 hours, and during this entire thing, I was finally let go after telling them no, that I had no plans to leave the United States. I was, again, handed to around 5 different officers. I'm not sure if I made that clear, and put in around 3 to 4 different rooms. I believe 4. My parents just came back from Mexico, and nothing happened to them. They were completely fine. They went through. They also have global entry. No questions asked at all. And they came in through the Phoenix airport. This happened in the Miami airport. I also want to let you guys know that I am very political on my accounts. I literally have a clothing brand called Trump for the Dump, making meme shirts of Trump, and then it's a non-profit, so we donate to organizations.
Do your parents sell
I
orange
also want to
Hitler
say
water
that
bottles?
I post on my Instagram stories and my TikTok a lot of things, anti-Trump and anti-MAGA, whatever you want to call it. So that is a red flag for them. So yeah, my Instagram wasn't completely clean. They didn't do anything about it. They kind of just took my phone and searched through everything. I don't really know what they were looking for. I don't have more answers. I complied with every single thing that they asked. I didn't give them a hard time about anything because I'm more scared than anything. And I hope that kind of clears up a little bit of confusion for you guys, and also so you guys know that not everyone has to go through this process, because there were many people that were with me that were being held and just got to get let go of. I know one lady was crying in there because she couldn't get a hold of her immigration lawyer, so I don't know what that was about. I have no clue. But yes, this is a real story. I have another video showing proof of like where these places were at. But yes, this was at the Miami airport at the end of April.
End of April. Very, very recently. Journalist Seamus Malekafazali, whose work has been published in The Nation, The Intercept, and other publications, said he has had several experiences like the one described by Piker at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. been pulled into secondary screening many times, and O'Hare CBP had the most involved in specific questions about Gaza for me by far, said Malika Fazali. So ask him specific questions about Gaza. Ari Cohn, lead counsel for tech policy at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, that's FIRE, said the incidents show that Immigration and Customs Enforcement and CPB are the enemies domestic that federal officials swear an oath to defend against. Strong statement, but an accurate one, I would say. No U.S. citizen should be detained by law enforcement at the border or anywhere because of their protected speech, said Cohen. Yeah, obviously. And let's not forget, a few months ago, this happened to our friend Max Blumenthal. Why was I questioned by the feds? He was just pulled aside. From what I remember about that, it was not for 2 hours. It was relatively brief compared to what they did in this example most recently. But yeah, it is extremely troubling. Our last segment was about the prescription drug executive order, about slashing drug prices. In America, we get fleeced constantly, day after day after day. We get ripped off. We are definitely the most financially exploited people in the developed world, as compared to other countries that have healthcare, paid leave, things like that. The bargain is that in America, you have to give the pharmaceutical companies your house when you get sick because you can't afford to pay them. So you have to go into medical bankruptcy and give everything you have ever owned and worked for.
You have to be driven into poverty so you'll qualify for Medicaid.
Right. So the bargain is you face financial ruin when you get old and get sick, and you can face financial ruin for any number of pitfalls that you may stumble into along the way throughout your life. The bargain is, in exchange for that, you're supposed to have basic liberties like freedom of speech. You go and start now, you're going to fleece me when I go to the pharmacy, and you're going to shake me down at the airport because of my opinion that I say on the internet. At that point, how is this a desirable place to live? Like, this is why I'm saying, like, I don't know if I'll continue to live here. Like, this is just so insane. It's so insane. And
you don't even like to go to Connecticut, though.
Well, this is what this is what I mean. Like, dude, like, if you're going to go somewhere, you may just want to move there. Just buy a one-way ticket, not come back. Like, this is crazy.
So basically,
crazy.
Basically, this is so that you don't have to travel.
Really. Yeah, right, exactly. Well, now I have an excuse. I can't travel.
To minimize it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Round trip. It's a schlep.
Round trip. It's a schlep. That's right.
Just go, stay. If you're going to go already, stay already.
Yeah. And as far as Trump goes, hey, look, man, if you're having a falling out with Netanyahu, if you're having a falling out with Israel, it's time to rethink this shit, because this is incredibly damaging. And look, we do this for a living, not at the level that Hasan Piker does, but this is what we do. Well, no, I mean, honestly, like,
we're learning to play Final Fantasy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We're working on our gaming game. But yeah, look, like, this is what we do, and so there's a subjectivity that we bring to this. Obviously, I don't think there's any point in, like, hiding that. I'm not ashamed of that. We're all human. But if speech is not protected, if speech can get you harassed in this way and potentially charged in this way, I mean, they're doing what they can to everybody, right? Because Hasan is an American citizen, they can't just pull him off the street yet. They got to find an excuse. Oh, he's coming back through the border, so we'll roust him here. Hey, where'd you go? How long did you stay? What were you there for? What were you doing? Why were you there? Who'd you talk to while you were there? Blah, blah, blah. But the further they push this, the less desirable a place this becomes for anybody to live. And when you push your infractions on civil liberties past a point, for me, maybe this has to do subjectively with what we do for a living now, but I've always kind of felt that, like, hey, if I'm not allowed to run my mouth somewhere, I don't want to live there. Whatever the economic perks are. Like, even if you cut my prescription drugs by 50%, if you're going to police people in this way, then it just ain't worth it. I mean, this is really chilling authoritarian shit.
Yeah, especially for someone like me who does like to travel and travels frequently. I've been researching it. I've been thinking we should probably do a special report advising people about this kind of thing, but obviously you want to be very accurate, so we'll put a lot of care into a segment like that. From preliminary research that I've done, they do not, if you are an American citizen, even at the border, have the right to go into your devices. However, what you should do as a basic protection is disable the Face ID, so that they can't just put it up to your face and get into your devices. Obviously, a next level up from that is to travel only with burners, which a lot of journalists are starting to do now if they have to enter or exit the United States. I've wanted to ask Max this because from my understanding of his account, he actually answered questions. I am assuming you have your right to not answer questions and demand a lawyer. Is there a reason not to do that? So that's something I have to research as well. I think we should definitely do a segment on this. I'm not going to not leave the country because of this. But yeah, man, I mean, does it concern me coming back? Of course it does. Of course it does, doing this for a living. I mean, clearly it's an intimidation tactic.
Right.
And at that point, that's why I say, like, I'm up here in Buffalo. Honestly, I like it. I'm not buying a house in this country.
No.
Like, there's no point to me to, like, make that kind of a move unless I'm committing. And I'm not prepared to commit to staying in this country. And you got to think, I'm one person. How much of an effect is that going to have on economic activity in this country in general? Like, I can't be the only one who feels, even if it's not for the civil liberties reason, just because of the chaos of today tariffs are on, tomorrow tariffs are off. Do you really want to, like, buy something here now? Would you start a business here now with all of that? Like, and again, a lot of our economic activity is dependent on the flow of people in and out of the country. Billions and billions of dollars in tourism. Huge impact on the quality of our universities going forward. Who's going to want to go here?
Right. No, I mean, it's becoming a very undesirable place to go to school, to live, and even to visit on vacation. Visit on vacation. I mean, why would you subject yourself to this?
You're really going to see, if you've already seen 25, 30% drops from Europe, from Canada, these are trips people book months in advance. If you're seeing that now, wait until Christmas. Wait until Christmas. That's when it's going to have been long enough for people to decide just not to come here. They're not going to have trips that were pre-booked. Total collapse. You're going to see a total collapse. This is something obviously we both come out of the tour industry, so we're more sensitive to this than most of the population. I think a lot of people do not understand what's coming for this country when people don't want to come visit anymore.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think you are right. All right, let's see here. Yasim Miller, thanks for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Janice Anderson says a fair number of Trumpers have disagreements with certain aspects of his policies, but still support him and his coattails in Congress. That's true. Eric Suarez, thanks for the $2. Pepe Mujica has passed away at the age of 89. Oh, wow, 89. Wow, he's old. Nocturnal Human, the midterms is when Democrats take power again as part of the duopoly grift. That's the plan. Yep. No matter what the public thinks, politics is theater. Thank you for that very much. All right. We got one more segment on the day, and then we'll take the rest of our chats.
Take one more. I'm cleaning this up a little bit.
No, all right. Eric Cusso says Trump is shrinking boner pill prices. Thank you, Eric Cusso. Yeah.
I got to assume the position.
All righty. Russell, I don't think you should go to China now. They will do what they did to Hasan to you. Yeah, that's what people think. That's it. No, look. I mean, it's a reasonable concern, obviously.
Yep. All right.
What are you going to do? Call a lawyer when you're there, or wait for them to get there?
Well, and then if I know cops, they're going to fuck with you. And that might be why Max answered questions. Oh, you want to wait for a lawyer? All right. You want to be a wise guy? You'll wait for a lawyer. You know, freaking 36 hours to get you a lawyer. You know, I mean, I definitely see that. I do plan tentatively to leave the country in the fall. You know what I'm planning on doing? If I'm going to leave, I'm going to make it worth it. Like if I'm going to get rousted on the way back, I'm staying out for 6 months.
Yeah, well, there you go. Stay out for 3 years until
exactly. Come back after. See how the midterms go.
See how the midterms go. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I do have the option of going to Australia and staying indefinitely. So that's a thought. All right.
That would make the schedule pretty fucking brutal. How are we going to coordinate when we're on?
I mean, it would be brutal on me. I would have to do the show in the middle of the night.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. For me, it wouldn't change. All right. So
for you, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a story that got on my radar. It's not getting the kind of coverage that I think it should, because I feel this is kind of a Rosetta Stone to the entire political conversation that's going on right now. If you have the question, is the internet being manipulated by deep state actors using AI bots? I feel like this story kind of answers that question, if indeed you were still questioning that. So some researchers from the University of Zurich, without anybody knowing, without any knowledge of Reddit, set AI chatbots loose to see if they could convince people of things. Now, this article from The Atlantic, and most articles about this, are primarily about the backlash on the ethics. And while that may be a worthy subject, that's not really my interest. My interest is the fact that it worked. The researchers based at the University of Zurich wanted to find out whether AI-generated responses could change people's views. So they headed to the aptly named subreddit Change My View, in which users debate important societal issues along with plenty of trivial topics and award points to posts that talk them out of their original position. Over the course of 4 months, the researchers posted more than 1,000 AI-generated comments on pit bulls. Is aggression the fault of the breed or the owner? The housing crisis. Is living with your parents the solution? DEI programs, were they destined to fail? The AI commentators argued that browsing Reddit is a waste of time and that the controlled demolition 9/11 conspiracy theory has some merit. And as they offered their computer-generated opinions, they also shared their backstories. One claimed to be a trauma counselor. Another described himself as a victim of statutory fill in the blank. In one sense, the AI comments appear to have been rather effective. When researchers asked the AI to personalize its arguments to a Redditor's biographical details, including gender, age, and political leanings, inferred courtesy of another AI model through the Redditor's post history, a surprising number of minds indeed appear to have been changed. Those personalized AI arguments received, on average, far higher scores in the subreddit's point system than nearly all human commenters, according to preliminary findings that the researchers shared with Reddit moderators and later made private. This analysis, of course, assumes that no one else in the subreddit was using AI to hone their arguments. In the end, this could have been AI convincing AI in some cases. In fact, I'd be surprised if it wasn't. In one recent laboratory experiment, participants who believed in conspiracy theories voluntarily chatted with an AI. After 3 exchanges, about a quarter of them lost faith in their previous beliefs. Another found that participants who were asked to distinguish between real posts and those written by AI could not effectively do so. The reaction probably also has to do with the unnerving notion that ChatGPT knows what buttons to push in our minds. I read through dozens of the AI comments, and although they weren't all brilliant, most of them seemed reasonable and genuine enough. Without more robust detection tools, AI bots might seamlessly blend into online communities. That is assuming they haven't already. And yes, I would absolutely not make that assumption at all. You know, there is the dead internet theory that a majority now of what's going on the internet that we think is being generated by organic matter is being generated by AI. I don't know if I would go that far. I would go so far as to say a huge amount of our political conversations are being driven by AI bots that have been programmed to keep us arguing over nonsense. Now, if you go back and you read, if you haven't already, and I would highly recommend it, Tom O'Neill's Chaos, in which he makes a pretty convincing case that the Manson family was a CIA op intended to discredit the counterculture and the hippie movement. One of the most chilling quotes in it is the Manson family was not a, or I'm paraphrasing a bit, but the Manson family was not a CIA op gone wrong. It was a CIA operation gone right. Now, if they were doing things like that back then, do you really think in a world of social media, they are not taking full advantage of the unparalleled capability to control and warp minds, especially if they can automate it? If they can send bots out to do it? You think if these scientists at the University of Zurich were capable of programming AI like that, agencies that are funded to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars haven't had this capacity for a very long time already. And hey, Christian Parente talked a little bit about how pre-internet they used very similar techniques to what I would hypothesize they're using today through AI to change minds and to create the kind of fake left that we see today.
Internationally used foundations adept at ginning up a kind of fake left. And the European intellectual class, much of it leans left, and they're feeling hospitable towards the Soviet Union, since the Soviet Union was responsible for killing 8 out of 10 German soldiers. And the Americans are increasingly being harangued by these Europeans about, like, why do you have segregation in the United States? You know, why should we follow you guys? You're racist. And at the same time, then the Soviets are opening these palaces of culture and all sort of stuff in their occupied areas. And the CIA realized, well, we can't turn these into a bunch of, like, you know, American loving, you know, mainstream American types, but we can at least turn them into a kind of non-communist left. And so the CIA used 117 different foundations to help fund. It was like actually quite left in many ways, but it was always very anti-communist.
Okay, so setting aside, it doesn't really matter what you think about communism. The aim of creating a left that would not support communism is also the aim of making a left that doesn't talk about economics at all, that does not have economic concerns at all. This is how you go from this, a civil rights leader who actually did speak a lot about class and economics, particularly towards the end. He had events specifically about poverty. When he was assassinated, he was campaigning for a garbage man's strike.
Yep.
How do you get from that to this? Does that seem like an organic evolution that naturally welled up from society? Or does it make more sense that a person like this was elevated over people like this? Does it make sense that there are no people like this anymore? People often say, what happened to people like this? Well, people like this aren't allowed to get to where he got. And in order to fill that void, I believe, they elevate people like this as a kind of fake civil rights leader. I mean, you could not have a better case of something that just absolutely could not have organically come up from the soil of American culture. Really, this frizzy-haired, middle-aged white woman became the face of civil rights in America? Like, that, if that's not an op, what is? How do you get from this? This is the gay rights movement in the Stonewall era. Very radical. A lot of them were very tied to Marxism and tied their movement to economic theory and challenging bourgeois society on an economic basis. How do you get from that to this? Naturally? Do we really think that organically this turned into this? That there was no interference to cause that to happen? So now, in the present day, when they have tools that they did not have at this time, they didn't have anything like what they have now, and they were able to do this to that movement. So how do you get a bunch of people to, on the one hand, be absolutely furious at these people, be very angry at them for picking fruit for below minimum wage and allowing us to buy that produce cheaply, absolutely furious, get them out of the country, have the same exact people absolutely lose their minds about the horrible oppression of rich white landowners in South Africa, of all places? Do you really think that's organic? Do you really think that's organic? Of people, you got a bunch of people who can barely pronounce South Africa are absolutely obsessed with this subject. You think that really happened naturally? Hundreds of people are being killed. Do you really? Like, doesn't it make more sense that there is something behind that, particularly when you're talking about people who are not, I'm sorry, rocket scientists, who are just obsessed with this country that I promise you 99.999% of them could not find on a map? They're deeply emotionally invested in this and don't sense any contradiction in the way that 5 minutes ago they were being told to be furious about getting these people out of the country, but now they're being told they got to get these people in because they're being oppressed. Okay. You want to be fair? Yeah, ma'am. On the other side, people giving $600,000 to a black teenager that stabbed a white teenager in the chest, even if you think they got into a fight. I've been in plenty of fights. It never occurred to me to stab anybody in the chest. Do you think organically, without any manipulation behind the scenes, people just wake up and decide, you know what I want to do today? I want to make a donation on Give, Send, Go to a teen that killed another teen because I see in it the best cause by which I could represent anti-racist politics would be to make a cause celebre out of this kid. Do you really think that's organic? Does it make sense that that would be organic? And then, if you want to keep people divided, screaming at each other, this is perfect. I'm not saying she doesn't exist or that it was an op, although who knows, Shiloh Hendricks does sound kind of like an AI-generated made-up name. But let's assume she's a real person. It's a great opportunity, right? Now you get the other part of the society. Yeah, well, you know what? We're going to raise even more money for that person. Meanwhile, what are you not talking about the whole time? World's top 1% own more wealth than 95% of humanity. Now, that seems like something that affects you a lot more than this does, or this does, right? But you're not talking about that. Do you see the social media abuzz with that? That would make a lot more sense. That actually affects you personally. Look at that, man. Look at that. This is net worth by income bracket. This only goes up to 2020. The middle 60% has as much wealth as 1% of the population. Now, you cannot have this kind of inequality without having a deteriorating quality of life, not only for that middle 60%, God help you if you're in the bottom 40%. So if you're in that 1%, how do you keep the people from turning on you? With this, with this, with this. That's how you keep the people from actually turning their anger where it belongs. Look at this. This goes up to 2023. From 2020, 30 trillion, the top 1% had, jumped 44.6 trillion. Now, what was going on between 2020 and 2023? That was COVID, right? Did your economic situation improve during that time? Did you come out of that better off, or did you come out of that worse off? See, this, they don't want you talking about this. They want you talking about this. Hayden?
Well, I mean, I think obviously they use AI to guide conversation. I think they use it for a lot more than that. I mean, I think that a lot of these sites where it's, hey, you could speak to a veterinarian now, for free, and then we'll pay you, and then you have to pay to speak to the real veterinarian that's not the robot veterinarian. I mean, they don't disclose that, but I assume a lot of that is automated.
Does the story end with you wiping your dog's pussy again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, but it's so smart. It could do so much that obviously I think it's doing a lot more than we realize.
I think it's very
there's
obvious.
No question about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
When you look at all that, all of these social movements that were meant to take as an organic evolution, makes no sense. If you just step back and think, if you've lived a day on planet Earth, it does not make any sense that you would go from MLK to Robin DiAngelo. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That is something that is imposed from the outside. That is outside interference with the evolution of society to keep it, to keep all social conversation, all social activism out of the hair of the oligarchs. And now they've got everybody addicted to social media, and you can just set loose AI. The CIA was doing this with human operatives and the Manson family in the 60s. Of course, they're setting AI bots loose to convince people of things and to drive the conversation into completely useless avenues and to keep people divided along opinion lines that are completely meaningless opinions of a statue, rather than to have them divided by class.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. So I'll add this, not to refute what you're saying, but I will say that, these social movements that had a more radical economic component that you refer to, we also have to remember that was during the era of state socialism. That was during the era of the Soviet Union. That was when there was a question, there was a debate globally as to, which economic orientation was more preferable. And then when the Soviet Union failed, we entered the famous end of history period. That, I think, did a lot to neuter a lot of the more economic radicalism that was a component of these social movements. I think it just became a given that, well, communism doesn't work. Okay, so if that doesn't work, if we write that off, then that naturally filters out a lot of that. Now, again, that's not to discount what you're saying. I think it's an and. I don't think one substitutes the other. I think one supplements the other.
I think what you're describing, like, yes, I agree. They were doing this while the Soviet Union existed.
That's what I mean.
A lot.
Yes.
But when the Soviet Union collapsed, it accelerated the process because there was not a counteracting Soviet effort to actually promote those ideas. So they basically had the field to themselves after that.
Right. Yes, exactly. And there was a just broadly, that whole philosophy had just been delegitimized, wrongfully, in my opinion. But that was sort of the common attitude towards that as well. Now's the era of, well, we have to work within capitalism and get as much done as we can for the people. Ultimately, that's an impossibility, in my opinion. But that, I think, became a dominant sort of baseline assumption. Add to that the fact that, a lot of these movements...
I think that baseline assumption got a lot of help because there is a lot of middle ground between, hey, we need a Marxist revolution, and hey, why don't we have the healthcare system that they have in Europe?
That's true.
And they drove all of the conversation into identity issues and away from questions of economics, to the point that I remember one of the attacks on Al Gore when he first launched his presidential campaign. He tried to do old school class kind of economics, and oh my God, did he get pilloried in the press? This is Chris Matthews. Nobody. It sounded so angry. Nobody's thinking that way anymore. Okay, so who told you to frame it that way? Right? Like he wasn't calling for a Marxist revolution, but even to be talking in economic terms was completely delegitimized. And I think that is a deep state effort that caused that at that time. And yeah, again, you didn't have the Soviets anymore to push back with their own ops.
Right.
There was that in the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. There was no real foundation for a movement to really organize against it in a formidable way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's read some super chats and Rumble rants, and then we will close the lights on today's stream. Don't forget, Misty Winston show tomorrow, 7 p.m. on Rumble. So make sure you're over there. If Rumble's blacked out in your area, it's going to be on X2, both on Comrade Misty's account and ours. Let's see here. Larry Coldwater says, looks like Australia is going to have an American refugee problem. Yes, that could be. Scorpionic Sag says, I see you guys as New Deal Democrats. Unfortunately, current Democrats are fascist and Bernie sold out to them. The Green Party is good, but still too much identity politics. We need a workers' party. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Democrat in any name. Neither is Russ at this point. But it's funny you mentioned the workers' party because we're getting back in touch with Shama and them this week, and for off the record conversations. But I'm glad to be back in precious dialogue with Sister Shama, as Cornell would say. Richard Namulala, that Buffalo poem yesterday was great, Russell. Oh, there you go. So Richard,
thank you, Rich.
All right,
thank you.
Tony H says they never been to South Africa. That's right, we've never been to South Africa. Appreciate that. Okay, we got some Rumble rants coming up here. We got Nocturnal Human. Oh, nope, got that one already. Got that one already. Sorry, I forgot to get rid of these here. Do you or Russell have any thoughts on Asmongold? The way he defends Israel and keeps doubling down on being against terrorists comes across as very artificial and astroturfed. To me, very sus indeed. I don't even know who that is.
I mean, I've seen those tweets once in a while, but I don't follow that closely enough to have an opinion.
What is that? I've heard
it's just one of those fucking MAGA accounts.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Okay. Oh, Zach Asmongold. Yeah, I don't have never paid it enough mind to remember. So, yeah, I have no opinion on that. Imagine your job is to review daily flight lists and search social media profiles for any rabble rousers. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really nuts. McChrystal was the Daily Show guest last night explaining away Jelani. The Hastings conspiracy theory is several years old. No, I know the Hastings one. I just didn't know where you saw the McChrystal. I mean, I assumed it was on the Daily Show, but I didn't watch it. Thank you. The Vanguard van says, this isn't anything new. U.S. has always been an awful place to live, especially with kids. Mass shootings, unlawful arrests, injustice system, racism, and even set SWAT after Max before detained Code Pink. Yeah, well, if Max was writing about how the first time they detained him, they asked him about his contacts with Medea Benjamin. So yeah, man, they keep track of shit. It's really eerie. William Worthy isn't worthy to enter our door. Went down to Cuba. He's not American anymore. It's strange to hear State Department say you were living in the free world. In the free. What's the rest of that lyric? That's a what song is that? What song is that?
I don't know it.
That's an old one. The world. Sorry, it bled off the screen there. Oh, there it is. The Ballad of William Worthy song by Phil Oakes. Yeah, it was one of those old New York folk singers. The Vanguard van says Biden more deportations, Bush Guantanamo Bay, by Obama habeas corpus, Kent State students protest shot by military in 1970. How can anyone even argue anything has even changed? Well, what they're doing now is they're really broadening it out. You know, I mean, obviously, like the habeas corpus thing. And yes, you know, under Obama and, you know, the Biden really went after the January 6th people in a way that I thought was completely totalitarian and vicious and fascistic, you know, using surveillance against peaceful protesters. If you were there, we know you were there, you know. They couldn't find out who planted the bombs, though. That's weird because they knew where everyone else was that day. But anyway, different topic for a different show. Yeah, the difference was, you know, like as fascistic as Biden was in that way, you didn't have Merrick Garland go on TV every 3 days threatening to come find people and come lock people up. Like when you deliberately gin up broad-based fear amongst the population that they're next and that they're being watched and that you will come for them, that's a different brand. I'm not even saying it is in practice necessarily more dire. I mean, it looks like it's on pace to be more dire. We'll have to wait and see. But that is to me a major difference. Okay, let's see. Russell, case in point, great segment, says the Vanguard van. Also, people don't talk about BLM leaders who were all found shot in their burning cars or suicided via 20-style lynching. Feds still hate leftists. El Casador, the perfect time for the elites to control. No need for analog agents following you around. When you have one in your pocket 24/7, always on, all data capture can be used by AI in the back-end data center. Thank you. Vanguard Van says, I'm calling it. Russell has become a true comrade. Welcome, brother. Thank you, Vanguard Van. El Casador says, Yuval Noah Harari, that WEF NWO shill, has basically presented at Davos and warned of this AI capability. Funny, sometimes on the other side says it out loud. Otacon says he's not just a MAGA account. He started as a quartering type dude, but quickly overtook Hasan as the top political commentator on Twitch. Okay. He keeps calling Hasan a terrorist and sicking his fans on him. Well, that's what Hasan was referencing to a lot of these shit talkers. Yeah. I mean, no. Well, this is what I mean. Like that kind of just thuggery, you know, has consequences. So if you don't have free speech for everybody, then you may as well not have it for anybody. And that's part of what he was saying in that video. Scorpionic Sag, we still have state socialism in China, Vietnam, Cuba, and North Korea, asked Michael Parenti. Well, yeah, and well, yes, and to your point, you know, as the legitimacy of this project implodes, people are going to start giving those systems a second look, which is going to accelerate.
It's happening with China.
Yeah, and it's going to accelerate.
I've never seen so many people be so pro-China's now.
Yeah, of course, and that is going to accelerate any, you know, sabotage of those movements with any tools that they have at their disposal, AI being obviously a huge one. I mean, obviously. I mean, you could really automate a huge part of the discourse that way. And by doing that, you obviously steer it and shape it.
They're doing.
Well, yeah, there's no way they're not doing it. Yeah.
We get a lot of people say whenever we drop one of these South Africa segments or something, you have so many racists in your chat. No, we don't. No, we don't. A lot of, man, some of them are just people looking for that subject. If you look at that, what we just covered, man, a lot of them are probably not even fucking people.
Yeah, some of them are bots. Yeah, obviously. All right.
Like, look at the live chat.
Yeah, exactly.
If we have so many watching us, why don't you see it in the live chat?
Yeah, because the trolls love trolling you in real time. They love doing it when you're live because they think they're going to throw you off. Oh, I triggered him live on air. So what does that tell you? Remember that one person? Who was that person? I don't want to say their name. I know. Yeah, we won't give them the pleasure. But they went on for months and months posting in other chat. I triggered Russell live. You know, like they live for that. So yeah, if they're all organic, where are they? Right. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $2. You gave us $2 twice for a total of $4. Thanks, Brent Yoendo, for those super stickers. Appreciate it, folks. Appreciate you all being here today. Thank you for spending the afternoon with us. Misty Winston is live tomorrow with Hammett Dardigan and Kyle Anzalone. So that should be a fun time. So make sure you tune in there, 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble exclusively. So make sure you're following us over there. We will be back on this main channel Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks for being here with us today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.